From Tampa Bay's #1 news station, this is the Fox 13 4 o'clock news.
Whether you've already left, you're getting ready to leave, or you're staying put, keep in mind the roads are already jammed. We've got the latest on evacuation orders and the effort to get all the debris picked up from the last hurricane before Hurricane Milton comes to Florida. That's where we are on this Monday. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Chris Cato.
And I'm Linda Hurtado, and let's get right to Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado. Paul?
Yeah, I tell you, we talked last night. I was on at 10 and 11, and we discussed that everything was really set today for rapid intensification. And what do we happen this morning? This storm went absolutely crazy. In fact, it broke records as far as the rate of intensification. It's a Cat 5 with winds of 175 miles an hour. On top of that, you can see lots of lightning flashes around the eye wall here of Milton, and that indicates so much. You know, by nature, hurricanes do not produce a lot of lightning, but we see a lot of lightning around the eye wall. That indicates extreme turbulence and a very strong storm. Now, all of that being said, to get a Cat 5, everything in the atmosphere has to be just perfect. If anything gets out of tilt or out of whack, it can't maintain. We're talking about a heat engine, so it usually begins to weaken. We think as a storm begins to head our way, there'll be some weakening. But the problem is the track of the storm brings with it a lot of water, big storm surge, and even if the storm, collapses as it moves to our west coast, it's just not going to be enough to really eliminate the storm surge threat. Katrina, as it moved onshore in Louisiana, was weakening rapidly, went down to a Cat 3. It brought with it a Cat 5 level storm surge. The storm surge, the biggest, will be point of landfall south, much lesser north. Hurricane watches are up. The worst weather is going to be Wednesday afternoon, Wednesday night, improving on Thursday. As I said, hurricane watches are up. We have so much to talk about today. We have talked about local impacts. We're going to really harp on the storm surge threat. There's a lot to get through. We're getting just started. We'll be back in about 20 minutes. Back to you.
All right, Paul, thank you. As Hurricane Milton approaches Florida, many people in Tampa Bay are evacuating. In Hillsborough County, evacuation orders have been issued for zones A and B and for all mobile or manufactured homes. Pinellas County has issued mandatory evacuation orders for zones A, B, and C. Manatee County has issued evacuations for zones A, B, and C and mobile homes, and all of Anna Maria Island has been ordered to evacuate starting at noon tomorrow. Sarasota County, zones A and B, mobile homes and houseboats, you've been ordered to evacuate. In Pasco County, zones A, B, C, mobile homes and those in low-lying, flood-prone areas have been ordered to evacuate. Residents in Zone C are under a voluntary evacuation. In Hernando County, residents west of US 19, and that includes zones A, B, and C, have been ordered to evacuate. Citrus County, mandatory evacuation starts at 8 a.m. tomorrow for anyone in mobile homes or manufactured homes. All of this information, as well as information for inland counties, is at fox13news.com.
And the clock is ticking, but you do still have time to prepare for this storm or to evacuate. Fox 13's Ariel Placencia joining us now live in Tampa. Ariel, for those who are planning to hit the road, they should know the gas stations have been very busy and some of them are out of fuel.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Chris. So staff here at the Wawa off Dale Mabry says that more gas should be on the way. In the last 30 minutes, we watched them block off several of their pumps because as of right now, staff tells me that they only have diesel and non-ethanol. And it's really a story across gas stations across our county. We talked to one couple today who said that they went to 6 before they finally found some gas.
Costco, Sam's, crazy. Wawa, crazy. But it is what it is.
Everyone's out.
And if you are going to be out and about looking for gas, check out this interactive online tool by the company Gas Buddy. Type in any city in the search bar, and it'll give you the names and addresses of nearby gas stations that are open and have both fuel and power. It'll also show you which ones are completely out. I've posted a link to this map over on our website, fox13news.com. And as we've mentioned, here in Hillsborough County, there are mandatory evacuations for zones A and B. Northbound traffic on I-75 was already getting pretty heavy as of Monday afternoon. Residents getting gas told us they can't believe we're doing this all over again so close to Helene.
As God help us all. I feel bad. People who already got destroyed, it's going to, hopefully they didn't already redo stuff and it's going to happen again, so.
And for those who are getting gas and then evacuating, they're finding that so many of our hotels inland are already filling up. Well, I talked to the Hillsborough County Hotel and Motel Association, and they told me that we are in such a unique situation. And that's because during Helene, which again was not that long ago, so many Pinellas County residents had evacuated and are now staying in Hillsborough County hotels. So to begin with, our supply was limited. That's kind of put us in a tricky situation, Chris. We'll talk more about it coming up tonight at 6.
Yeah, and we did hear the governor saying in his most recent news briefing of just a few minutes ago that though we do have a lot of gas stations that are out of fuel, more fuel is on the way. It's being trucked in. So they're hoping that there will still be gas to supply those people who still need it and want to get on the road. Ariel Placencia, live for us in Tampa. Thank you, Ariel.
Well, crews across Tampa Bay are racing to collect as much debris left over from Helene as possible, and a lot of homeowners may have to come up with their own plan, though. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer live in Tampa with more on this for us. Aaron.
Yeah, Linda, collection crews are ramping up their efforts as we speak, but homeowners are being urged to make some plans if they still have these kinds of debris piles in their yards, try to get them out of the way and get them cleared up. But the issue goes beyond yard waste. Neighborhoods throughout Tampa Bay have piles of furniture, appliances, and other items destroyed during Hurricane Helene. As we speak, the Florida Department of Emergency Management is working to expedite debris removal. Governor DeSantis' executive order requires all disaster debris management sites and landfills in counties impacted by Helene to allow 24/7 drop-off. Up to 4,000 National Guardsmen are being called in to help remove debris, but that likely isn't going to be enough to complete the extensive cleanup by Wednesday. Some homeowners are taking matters into their own hands by dropping off debris at collection sites themselves, while others are worried about what's left behind.
I was going to wait for the city to come by and pick it up until, Milton showed up. And then, and so rather than, it'd be probably a shot to the face to have to pick up all this stuff and then have it blown back around. Yeah, and it'd be dangerous as well.
We pulled a bunch of stuff out of our yard and everything like that. There was garbage cans. There was, things that came from the neighbor's house. So, yeah, I'm worried that these things will become projectiles and, do further damage.
And it's not just debris becoming projectiles. The city of Tampa is also worried about it washing into roadways and clogging storm drains. Meanwhile, Tampa Mayor Jane Castor says the city is looking for any debris hauling groups, companies, or individuals who are licensed and insured to help with debris collection. The city's solid waste director is urging people to store debris that isn't removed by Tuesday evening inside their homes or garages, sheds, something along those lines if possible. If not, he's asking people to move the items behind their homes. And this is likely the situation and what people are recommending throughout Tampa Bay, Linda, because this really is a problem just about everywhere.
Yeah, and gosh, this is the time for neighbors to help neighbors, too. If, someone that lives next to you that's elderly and maybe can't do it, this would be the time to help each other, right? Thanks, Aaron.
That is a great point. In Pinellas County, mandatory evacuations are in effect for zones A, B, and C and all mobile homes in the county. That's more than 500,000 people. Pinellas officials say those people should really get out by Wednesday morning at the latest, and they say, if possible, get out of the county. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says starting at 7 p.m. tonight, the barrier islands will be open only to residents, business owners, debris pickup crews, and ride-share drivers who are helping people evacuate. By 7 p.m. tomorrow, the barrier islands will close to everyone. All those crews, that will be closed to you. Now, local and state crews and contractors have been working around the clock to remove the debris that was left by Hurricane Helene. But county officials say realistically, they won't be able to move all of it by the time Milton gets here. And the Treasure Island Fire Chief has a sobering message for anyone who is staying on the barrier islands.
Just evacuate. I can't tell you enough. I'm not worried about your possessions. I'm not worried about your generator safety at this point or your EVs. Just get off the island with your life and you'll be ahead of the game. At some point we won't be able to come get you. And keep in mind, we're expecting feet more of storm surge than we had last time, and it was up to here in your living room. So do the math. It's not survivable. You've got to heed the evacuation orders.
Not survivable. In Pinellas County, you can still take storm debris to the solid waste disposal facility through the 34th Street gate. That's open 24/7 until the conditions force it to close. St. Pete also has a new debris site for residents of the city and private haulers. That one's on 72nd Street North across from Azalea Park. It is open from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Manatee County has extended their evacuation alerts, now including zones A, B, and C, as well as all manufactured and mobile homes. Sarasota County is also calling for evacuations of levels A and B. Both counties saw devastating damage from Helene in their coastal communities. On Anna Maria Island, trucks are back out trying to pick up as much of that debris you see all over the streets as possible. Water, power, sewer to the Manatee County barrier island will be shut off tomorrow morning. The Holmes Beach City Hall and police departments spent the day moving important equipment and documents out of their city buildings. Law enforcement will leave the island community tomorrow night, and they are letting residents know if you stay, you're on your own.
What I'm asking people to do is to leave the island. Get out of here by tomorrow, at the end of the day tomorrow, be gone. There's not going to be anybody out here to help you. In Helene, we were able to come out and do some rescues for some families with kids. We will not be here. We will be leaving the island tomorrow evening.
In Sarasota, at Robarts Arena, linemen with Florida Power and Light are staging to be deployed to areas where power will need to be restored. Crews were already seen heading out to prepare and get into place.
Schools are canceled tomorrow and Wednesday for almost every district in the Bay Area. That includes Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, and Citrus counties. Those districts will make a decision later this week on whether to reopen on Thursday. Of course, it just depends on how bad the storm hits us. Polk and Hardy County schools announced they will be closed from now until Thursday, so their intention is to reopen on Thursday. And Pasco and Hernando schools will remain closed through Friday. Pasco and Hernando. Now, local colleges and universities have also canceled classes. USF, St. Leo, St. Petersburg College, and Polk State College are closed through Thursday. And the new college campus in Sarasota is closed all week and will remain closed until a post-storm assessment can be done. Tampa International Airport will close at 9 a.m. tomorrow and remain closed until they can assess any damage brought by the storm. And St. Pete Clearwater International Airport will close after the final flight on Tuesday and will remain closed Wednesday and Thursday. A lot of information out there for every city and county. We know that some of this is very specific to you, some of it isn't. So for your specific county, if you haven't heard the update or the information you need on air yet, you can always go and find it right there. Very easy to find on the main page, our fox13news.com website. We have a county-by-county guide with all of those closures, the sandbag locations, and the shelter locations.
All right, coming up, we're going to take you out to Clearwater Beach and see how people there are getting ready.
If you are relying on Amazon reviews to help you decide on a purchase, heads up. According to FakeSpot, the following categories are the most likely to have bogus or biased feedback: watches, Christmas decor, watch bands, sweaters, and pullovers. But the top spot for fake reviews? Slippers. FakeSpot says 71% on Amazon have fake reviews, with thousands of products and barely any name brands. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. New data finds that at ages 44 and 60, you end up aging more quickly from a biological point of view. Now, what can you do, folks? You need to limit your alcohol, get more sleep, make sure you exercise, and certainly don't smoke, and you will invest in your health 401k. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hi, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense to save you some money on travel. Before you book your next flight, check out the new Airline Customer Service Dashboard. It's on transportation.gov. If your flight is delayed or canceled, it'll show you which airlines will rebook you for free, plus which airlines will offer free hotel or meal vouchers if you get stuck. That's a big savings.
To get the most out of your cell phone battery, consider shallow charging. Instead of draining your battery to zero, recharge it 50%. When you charge it up, stop at about 90%. Once a month, you should run it down to 5% and recharge so it can recalibrate its self-assessment. When charging is done, remove your phone from the charger. Electronics will age faster if they're left plugged in when fully charged. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely.
You're watching Fox 13, Tampa Bay's #1 news station.
Well, ahead of Hurricane Milton, we found people on Clearwater Beach loading up and getting out, and that's exactly what they should be doing. For many, it's the second time they've evacuated. First Helene, now Milton. This has been such a challenging time for so many of you. We know that.
My house was condemned over in Indian Shores, so I took everything from there to here, and now evacuating again. The plan is to pick up my daughter and go to Winter Haven.
City officials in Clearwater say they're working 24/7 to get as much debris cleared from the streets as possible. The city says they already had trucks and contractors lined up before the storm, so they're hoping they can get a lot of the debris secured before Milton hits. Really, that is a concern because that, you know, the projectiles, right?
Sure.
Now, they could be all over the street. It could break windows.
That's the main thing.
Right.
I mean, you don't want to get your windows compromised.
Right.
So when you have all that, I mean, we're talking, you know, potentially over 100-mile-an-hour winds, that all becomes airborne, and that has to go someplace. That's the problem.
Yeah. Such a different storm than Debbie, too. I mean, this is Debbie never... We didn't have to deal with the eyewall.
And Helene?
This is different.
Debbie and Helene.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both
I'm sorry. I meant Helene. You know what I meant.
If there's one good thing, though, I think Helene, it shocked so many people, the storm surge, that they are going to evacuate.
I think I think you're right. We don't want to. Didn't want to. It's tough.
It's not a good thing,
yeah,
right?
So, but you're correct. And now that it's so fresh in people's minds, and we sometimes struggle about getting the message out about the dangers of water. Water's the killer. 90% of all people that die during tropical events is because of water, not wind. So
and how scary, right? How scary to have your house fill up.
I still have my inbox filled from midnight during Helene at the beach, people saying, hey, can you send someone over to help me out at midnight? And that's a lot of that. So we don't want that to happen again. That's the key.
Right.
All right, then. Let's take a look outside. Actually, we'll look at the loop here because what we saw today from this morning into this afternoon is the pressure dropping. And you're looking at a hurricane that really is intensified quicker than any hurricane, I think, on record in the Gulf of Mexico. It's a Cat 5. Now, hurricanes don't maintain Cat 5 status forever because what happens is how pristine the atmosphere is to support a hurricane like this doesn't last forever. So there is going to be some weakening. In fact, the environment around Florida 2 days from now I'm not going to say it's hostile, but it won't be very conducive to maintaining the intensity. So it is going to weaken as it moves towards us. Even though you're hearing the word weaken, it'll still carry with it the big storm surge and certainly enough wind to cause some damage. Off and on spotty light rain. So weather-wise, as you do your preps today and tomorrow, lots of clouds, kind of windy, got a big hurricane southwest of us, so you get a sense as you're outside that something's coming, with the clouds kind of moving quickly across the sky and some off and on rain. Waiting for the 5 o'clock advisory, it'll be in pretty soon. A little bit of a dip down to the southeast, and now it'll get picked up by a trough and accelerate. There may be some hurricane conditions along the northern coast of the Yucatan. And then it gets picked up by that trough. And once it begins moving our way, we'll start getting a really high confidence on where the landfall point will be, because that's going to be critical in determining the storm surge height, the numbers. And we're thinking 8 to 12 feet from the point of landfall south. So obviously, if the storm was to make landfall, south of us, and I'm just throwing this out there, Longboat Key, Tampa Bay gets an east-northeast winds, but areas south of Longboat Key get a significant storm surge. Waiting for the 5 o'clock advisory, as we get closer, we start thinking, okay, so let's imagine that the track is off, it's off by 10, 20, 30, 40 miles, then we realize it's still somewhere over us. So we're getting to the point where the error is not going to be enough to bring it really someplace else, up to the Big Bend or way south of us. It pretty much has to end up in our viewing area as we go through time, if that trend continues into tomorrow. All of the models now kind of coming into better agreement. For a time yesterday, there was a model shift to the south, and the Hurricane Center shifted the track in conjunction with that shift to the south. Today, the suite of models have all kind of come together and are all around Tampa Bay. It doesn't mean that the storm can't go this way or this way or this way. All of that, this makes a big difference, especially when it comes to storm surge impacts. Got a hurricane watch up for all of us. We have in purple, we're expecting winds that could be in excess of 110 miles an hour. That is a lot of damage. That is probably going to equate to widespread power outages, obviously, and even some big-time wind inland. We're talking wind speeds inland up to hurricane force. So when you move away from the storm surge, which you have to do, you're still going to be in a situation you're going to go through a hurricane. But more importantly, you're not going to have to worry about the water being a problem. That really is what matters. It's going to not be fun. It's going to be loud. It is not going to be a pleasurable experience at all to go through a hurricane this strong. But more importantly, and the key is, what really matters is keeping you and your family safe. And you do that by getting away from the water, and we'll get all through this when the storm begins to go east of us. So we'll have a lot more coming up. I'll be chit-chatting with you guys at 4:30, and I'll see you then.
All right, thank you so much, Paul. Check back in with you soon. By now, obviously, you should know your evacuation zone, but if you don't, go to fox13news.com, click on that image right there, and find your county to look up your evacuation zone. And there's a lot of information there, too, on every county in our area, and we're going to hear more from Governor DeSantis right after the break.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. Listen, new research finds that if you're older, over 65, if you exercise, you're going to improve your memory. Now, it actually helps with a part of the brain called the hippocampus. If you exercise, you will improve your memory and reduce your risk of developing dementia. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hey, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense to help you cut your impulse spending. Remove your credit card information from the retail websites where you shop, like Amazon or Walmart. If it's stored, it's just too easy to click and spend. Having to enter your credit card information each time gives you more time to think before you buy.
You're watching Fox 13, Tampa Bay's #1 news station.
The governor is urging everyone along the coast to follow evacuation orders.
And for people who are inland, he says to prepare for widespread power outages. Paul was just talking about that. Governor DeSantis said the storm could remain a hurricane as it crosses the state and exits into the Atlantic. And he says while there is still time to prepare, the window is closing.
is going to be powerful. So please take the appropriate precautions, listen to your local officials, and we'll get through this. We'll respond very quickly, but this does have the potential to have a lot of damage.
Now, the state has suspended tolls on highways across the Bay Area, Central Florida, and on Alligator Alley to help ease those evacuations. Officials are also preparing to open shoulders of roads. In fact, they may be doing this right now, I'm told, to allow for more lanes of traffic during those evacuation routes.
Hurricane Milton will have much more of an impact to inland counties than Helene did, and Polk County's Emergency Management Operations Center was fully activated on Sunday. Officials are preparing for rainfall that can cause localized flooding, strong winds that can damage homes and power lines, and down tree limbs that can block roads and damage homes. There are no hurricane evacuation zones in Polk County like in the coastal counties for storm surge. Officials are opening emergency shelters but say they should really be a last resort.
If you're in a mobile home, a manufactured home, an RV, or a camper, some type of structure that may not survive high winds, Plan A should be a friend, a family member, somebody from church that does not have to leave their home and make a plan to stay with them.
19 shelters across the county will be open tomorrow that have the capacity to house 38,000 people. They are pet-friendly shelters and special needs shelters as well. Still ahead, we're going to head to Pasco County to see how people there are preparing for the hurricane. And take a look at this. Traffic backed up already on I-4. Here we go, as people are trying to evacuate. FDOT opening up the emergency shoulders for car traffic to try and keep traffic moving. If you are about to hit the road, be patient.
I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense. Rental prices have skyrocketed 18% in 2 years, according to Redfin. So here's some tips to reduce your rent. Get a roommate. Shop for rentals in the winter when rents are lower. Consider privately owned rentals. Offer to pay a few months up front for a discount, and offer to do repairs or office work for lower rent.
You're watching the Fox 13 4 o'clock news.
Welcome back. I'm Chris Cato.
And I'm Linda Hurtado. Pasco County now. Zones A, B, and C in all mobile homes, manufactured homes, and low-lying areas are under a mandatory evacuation. Again, this now includes Zone C. Fox 13's Kylie Jones is live outside a sandbagging site in Newport Richey with the latest for us. Kylie.
Linda, yeah, Zone C was just added to that mandatory evacuation list. On one side of me, we've got the debris staging site for the county. There are mounds of debris building up, but that's only a fraction of what is still left around the county to clean up. And on the other side of me, you can see this is the Magnolia Valley Golf Course. This is a popular sandbagging site, unfortunately, very familiar for a lot of people. You can see the cars snaking around the line just to get in kind of at the last minute today. It's been packed all day, though. Shelters, though, here in Pasco County are now open across the county. They are all accepting pets. Go Pasco is offering free bus rides to the shelters. That'll last as long as the weather permits ahead of the storm. Pasco County emergency officials are warning people Milton is expected to bring catastrophic storm surge and catastrophic winds. But you can see people are now facing another uphill battle this time. Homes and businesses, especially in the Hudson area, still have mounds of debris, furniture, drywall, and trash outside their homes and businesses from Helene. The West Pasco Resource Recovery Center on Hayes Road is open for anyone to drop off debris as the county also races against the clock to get all of this cleaned up.
If you have debris that's out in front of your house that has not been picked up as of yet, I encourage you that anything that can become a flying missile, wood, 2x4s, metal, please try to store them back within your house. And any large objects that can float, dressers, refrigerators, try to get those secured as well.
County debris haulers have been out all day, again, racing the clock to get these mounds of debris cleared from nearly every home and business in some parts of the county. Any private waste company that can help is also encouraged to help neighbors or anybody they see who might need help bringing debris to that Hayes Road drop-off site. Emergency officials say there's not a cutoff time yet for when that will shut down, but of course urging people to do all of that as quickly as possible. Also a message for people who are evacuating. Emergency officials said even earlier this afternoon, US 19 is gridlocked. It is basically a parking lot right now because you've got not only people here in Pasco trying to evacuate, but people in Hillsborough County and Pinellas County. So their message is to leave now and give yourself as much time as possible. We also have information about shelters and those evacuation orders online at fox13news.com. Linda.
Yeah, and everybody just be patient and kind with each other, right? We're getting into the thick of it. Kylie, thank you.
Officials in Manatee County have issued evacuation orders for zones A, B, and C. Their message is clear: leave, because first responders won't be able to help you during the storm. Fox 13's Charlie Belcher was out on Holmes Beach, which was battered by storm surge during Helene, and he spoke to the police chief there.
This is obviously a big part of the problem on Holmes Beach, Anna Maria Island, and Manatee County. All of the debris and life's worth of belongings that is out on the street to be picked up. This is all going to become fuel for Hurricane Milton and thrown all over the place and clog storm drains and create so much more trouble. So officials from locally here on the island, the county, the state, they're making as many final passes as they can to get as much of this away as possible. The advice here is, because this area is under a mandatory evacuation as of noon today, everyone on this island, secure it the best you can, put it back inside a garage maybe, and close the garage before you leave, and then you must leave. The mayor of Holmes Beach, whose maiden name is Holmes, her family helped settle this whole area. The message is, get out.
Please, please, please leave. Most people have, because they really don't have a house here anymore, because the majority of our houses took on 3 to 4 to 5 feet of water. So they're already not staying out here. I can't imagine one person that's going to stay out here because of, number one, the surge was terrifying with the last one. This one's even going to be bigger. Plus, you've got the hurricane force winds on top of that. I can't imagine anyone staying.
And the message to everybody else to help, I guess, on the other side of this, when you do get back on your feet, come out to Holmes Beach and go to a restaurant and go to a surf shop.
Yes, our businesses need them dearly. We probably lost 98% of our businesses with floodwater. So our local business economy, I mean, it's going to suffer big time. And our resort housing industry. So once we get it all cleaned up, come back, support our businesses, support our local economy, because they're going to need them.
Of course, too early now to even think about the recovery side of Hurricane Milton, but this community will come back. It's a coastal community. They're strong-willed, but everybody now is just bracing for yet another storm. Charlie Belcher, Fox 13 News.
All right, good stuff from Charlie there.
Yeah, Paul's back with us now. Let's talk about just some practical things, because, the time is limited now for preparations. You talk about taping windows. Does that do any good?
I did. That was a long time ago, but I went out with one of our producers, Steve Geiger, one of our producers, and we did an experiment. We shot guns at windows that were taped and all kind, and the taping does not work at all. It's a complete waste of time. I mean, the theory is, okay, if the window breaks, maybe the tape would stop it from shattering all over the place, but the tape is not going to prevent the window from breaking. It's just tape on a window. Right. And if the wind's blowing 120 miles an hour and it's hit by an object, it's still going to break. And then if it doesn't, nothing happens. You have to spend hours in 90-degree heat trying to get goo off your window. So again, the taping of windows.
It's good information, so people don't waste time doing that right now.
By the way, is an excellent question.
Yes. Well, look, with this absolute beast behind us here, two things. This is going to weaken, most likely.
I don't want to give a false sense of security, like, hey, it's going to weaken, because I did the analogy at the top of the show, is that Katrina weakened rapidly on its approach to Louisiana. It was a Cat 5, made the big turn, came up towards the coast of Louisiana. It was a Cat 3 at landfall, but with it, it still brought a surge that was equal to what a typical Cat 5 brings. So even if this becomes a Cat 2 at landfall, the surge will still stay 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 feet. And again, we know that's the biggest problem of them all, is the surge.
Well, I think the uncertainty, too. Tell me this. At what point is the track so dialed in that you can say with supreme confidence that this is where it's going to make landfall?
Well, we'll never get to say a town or an exact location. But even now, even today, when you look at the model data, you're saying, okay, let's say they're off. Say the center line, and we say don't concentrate. Say the hurricane center is off by 50, 75 miles. You go 50, 75 miles north of that, and 50, 70. We're still us. It's still our viewing area, still our people. Right. We don't wish good things for one person's bad things, so it's all the same thing. It's in our viewing area. Our 10-county viewing area is going to have significant impacts in the storm, even if that forecast is off by a bit.
Good information. Boy, we appreciate you right now, Paul.
A long ways to go.
All right. So let's talk about power companies. They say be prepared for power outages. We are going here, right? Correct? Yes. TECO is expecting widespread extended outages. The company says 600 line workers are prepared to work around the clock to restore power as quickly as possible. Duke Energy is also getting ready for outages, telling us this morning that they're bringing in hundreds of workers from all over the country to help our area.
And in Florida, we work very closely with the other utilities. And fortunately for Duke Energy as well, we're able to tap into our resources in other parts of our service area around the country. So we actually have crews coming in from the Midwest, which includes our teams in Indiana, Kentucky, and Ohio.
Homeowners who evacuate should turn all of their power off before leaving, but TECO advises customers to keep their natural gas service on. That helps maintain the proper pressure in your home's gas pipes.
Good advice there. Okay, we continue to track this Hurricane Milton, and we're going to check back in. We'll have much more with Paul Delgado right after the break. Stay with us.
Hey, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense. Okay, we all know you can save money at the grocery store buying generic or store brands. But did you know you could save an average of 40%? CNET compared prices on 20 items and cut the bill from $125 to $75. And that's savings that can add up.
Fox 13 Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
Waiting for the 5 o'clock advisory to come in. There's so much data and information on these advisories now. They usually come in at the top of the hour. So I doubt we have it now. We'll have it for you at 5 o'clock. I'm going to be interesting to see if the watches become warnings. They may here at 5 o'clock as the storm begins to approach us. Maybe later tonight or tomorrow morning. We'll see. That's the well-defined eye. Let me go back on this. And you can see today, which has been really incredible, not only of a clear, well-defined eye, but also lots of lightning circling the eye. By nature, a lot of you have emailed me over the years saying, how can we get so much rain in a hurricane and I rarely see lightning or hear thunder? It's because the winds in a hurricane are going around in a circle and they're not bumping into each other. However, in extreme cases around the eye, when a hurricane is strong and intensifying, there's a lot of turbulence. Whenever you see a ring of lightning around the eye, that is really a high-end hurricane that could even intensify a bit more before things level off later on tonight. Now, back home we go. For your preps, for your traveling, off and on light rain, cloudy, breezy. The rain will obviously pick up during the day on Wednesday as Hurricane Milton begins to head our way. Let's see, it's still 2 o'clock advisory. A little bit of a dip to the east or southeast, getting very close to the Yucatan. Now it'll kind of parallel the Yucatan, and the driving mechanism, the steering currents are a trough. Because we're in October and we're getting towards winter, the atmosphere begins to change. Usually hurricanes go the other way. They go from east to west, obviously sometimes south to north, but in October, later in the season, the jet stream sometimes dips down into the Gulf. That's going to happen, and that's why it'll pick up the hurricane and accelerate it northeast, kind of riding along the jet stream and moving our way. Once it gets into that channel ahead of the trough, then the forecast confidence begins to go up, and we know there'll be a landfalling hurricane on our west coast, probably a Cat 3, maybe a high-end Cat 2. The biggest problem, besides inland wind, is going to be storm surge that south of where the eye makes landfall will likely exceed the numbers we had during Helene. So as bad as Helene was, this could be worse in spots. Now, as far as storm surge numbers go, they're all up and down the west coast. We'll fine-tune those numbers when we get a better sense of where the hurricane is going to make landfall. The model data now, coming into better agreement. We'll see this evening's run. So when I see you tonight at 10 and 11, this will be important to see if there's any, sometimes the whole cluster will shift to the south. We call this the model suite. Sometimes the whole suite of models kind of go a little this way. We'll see at 10 o'clock tonight, 11 o'clock tonight, based on the evening runs, if there's any change. But pretty good agreement today. Hurricane watch is up. In purple, that's where we expect winds over 110 miles an hour. This encompasses a lot of people. I mean, this is pretty much our highest population centers, all the way, by the way, from Lakeland to Plant City. Almost all the Manatee and Sarasota counties could experience winds over 110 miles an hour. The storm surge forecast is tricky because it really depends on where the center makes landfall. Now, if by chance the hurricane makes landfall here, okay, these numbers are going to be wrong because we're not going to get this much water north of where the center, the eye, makes landfall. So this is all going to have to be adjusted, but I understand completely what the Hurricane Center is doing because we just generally know a hurricane's coming this way. There's going to be some big surge. But these numbers will be refined and changed as we get a sense of where the hurricane is going to be making landfall late Wednesday into Thursday. Weather-wise, it's more rain, it's more wind, and then the weather improves by Thursday and actually pretty nice as we head into the weekend. Back to you.
All right, Paul, thanks. Well, the Bucs have made plans of their own ahead of Hurricane Milton. Scott Smith gives us the latest coming up.
You're watching the Fox 13 4 o'clock news.
Here is sports to distract us from the storm.
Yes, please.
Nope, it's affecting sports too. You know, a lot of people are evacuating ahead of Milton. Among those leaving the area until the storm passes is our Buccaneers.
Well, Sports Director Scott Smith is here with more on the Bucs plans. Where are they going, Scott?
Yeah, guys, so here we go. The Bucs, they have not been on the field since, of course, last Thursday following that loss to the Atlanta Falcons. And the next time they return to a football field, it's going to be located in New Orleans. The team visits the Saints on Sunday. They've decided to depart for New Orleans a little bit early. They're going to leave tomorrow morning. Now, this isn't the first time the Bucs have had to relocate for a hurricane. In 2022, they traveled to South Florida, practiced at Miami Dolphins facility down there to avoid Hurricane Ian. This time, the team's going to fly out tomorrow for New Orleans, relocating operations there for the week ahead, allowing time for the players and their families to kind of get out of the path of Milton before it arrives. Sunday's game can be seen right here on Fox 13 starting at 1 o'clock. Meanwhile, the Lightning's game tonight with Nashville has been canceled outright. The preseason tilt was originally scheduled to be played back on September 27th, but it was postponed due to Hurricane Helene. Now the game will be not played at all. Single game ticket holders, if you want to request a refund, you got to go back to the original point of purchase for that. Next game is the regular season opener, which is scheduled for Friday at Carolina. Meanwhile, USF football has a game scheduled at home this Friday against Memphis, and as of right now, it is still scheduled to be played. The university says it's still monitoring the situation, and should something change, they will, of course, provide updates. Right now, it's set for a Friday 7 o'clock kickoff at Raymond James Stadium. And finally, a little levity. Linda, it's never too early to start your holiday shopping, especially for that person that you love and they love sports. Something like a memento from one of college football's biggest games of the year. How about that goalpost? Pieces of that goalpost are hitting the auction block after, of course, Vanderbilt's huge win over Alabama on Saturday. Some pieces have already sold for just over $1,000.
Wow.
Now, that's a 4-inch piece. If you'd like an 8-inch piece, something a little bit more robust, nice mantelpiece for the Cato household, that'll cost you $4,000. Other items on the auction block include helmets for about $7,000.
Wow, really?
Yeah, you can get a couple of pylons for $1,000, or at least that's where the bid is right now. A third pylon's going to cost you another $900. A fourth will be another $800 plus. We got game balls currently going for just south of $3,000. So,
well, being Bama is a big deal. I wish I knew what it felt like.
Well, I think there's going to be some fines that I think Vanderbilt might have to pay off because of that little walk down into Nashville and launching into the river with that goalpost.
By the way, if you guys are just looking for a laugh, you just need some levity in all of this, I did live up to my end of the bargain, and I did fly the Alabama flag, and it's on my social media. If you just, Fox 13's Linda Hurtado, if you want to watch it.
It's epic. It's a beautiful sight to see that flag flying on your boat. And I love the music, too. Good editing in that piece there.
Yeah.
Although now I know why Alabama lost to Vandy. You had my flag.
I think I might keep it.
There we go. Yeah, that might
my
have been
good luck flag. All right, thank you, Scott. Order me a goalpost for Christmas.
The 1,000 one, not the 7,000.
It's on its way.
Still ahead, we check in on our northern counties to see how they're getting ready for Hurricane Milton as they continue to clean up from Helene.
You're watching Fox 13, Tampa Bay's #1 news station.
In Citrus County, storm surge remains a concern. The areas of Crystal River and Homosassa were devastated by the storm surge from Helene. Deputies had to rescue more than 100 people and dozens of pets over the course of the storm, and nearly every road off of US 19 heading toward the Gulf was underwater. And we heard from the Citrus County Sheriff this morning on Good Day, who is encouraging residents to take the storm seriously.
We're also concerned for the potential for storm surge. Where I am standing right now at the historic Homosassa Springs State Park, this would have been underwater on the day that Hurricane Helene came through and dropped all that storm surge into our community. There are parts of our community that had over 10 feet of storm surge as a consequence of Helene passing by us on its march towards the Big Bend area and all the way up into the Carolinas and Virginia. So we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to storm surge.
The sheriff is also concerned about all of the debris left over from Helene. That's a common theme we're hearing. He's encouraging people to put it away in their garages if they can't do anything else with it.
Well, less than 2 weeks after Hurricane Helene hit the area, Hernando County is preparing for Milton. Like other counties, emergency management officials there say safety is the top priority, and they do not want to see a repeat of Helene.
Well, we did have to make some rescues last time. Well, luckily, in Hernando County, we did not have any loss of life in the last storm event. But we do not want to have to make those rescues again this time. So again, if you are west of 19, you're in a low-lying area, your property floods, or if you're in a structure you do not think can handle high-level hurricane force winds, we advise you to make shelter plans starting tomorrow and before midday Wednesday.
There you go. West of 19, low-lying areas, mobile homes, get out and evacuate before Wednesday, he says. And if you're evacuating, they say in addition to shutting off the electricity to your home to avoid fires, you should also remove any electric vehicles, scooters, or devices with lithium batteries.
Boy, that was a big lesson from Helene.
There were many lessons, I think, that Helene brought that will come into play this time.
Yes.
Unfortunately, but at least we've had that warning. All right, stay right there.
The Fox 13 5 o'clock news starts right now.
From Tampa Bay's #1 news station, this is the Fox 13 5 o'clock news.
Hurricane Milton rapidly intensifying in the Gulf with Helene barely in our rear view. Tampa Bay braces for another life-threatening storm.
I've lost everything before and came here to regroup and restart.
From power outage preps to evacuation orders, debris cleanup at the last minute, and shelters opening, we are going county by county with all the information you need to know to get ready for another hurricane. Good evening, everyone. I'm Chris Cato, in for Haley Hines.
And I'm Linda Hurtado. Tampa Bay finds itself in the crosshairs of another dangerous storm. And now nearly every county in our area is under some sort of evacuation order.
Yeah, unfortunately, we're going to have emergency officials giving us updates in just a moment. But first, let's go to Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with the 5 p.m. hurricane advisory.
Yeah, Paul. A little out of breath. Ran from the office into here. Was trying to read the discussion, just wasn't in yet. Give me a second to catch my breath. So top winds are up to 180 miles an hour, which I'll be honest, it's about the top end of what the atmosphere will allow. So it's safe to say, and I'm not trying to be dramatic about this, but I mean, it's safe and fair to say that the worst weather on the entire planet is right here, right in this little circle. Top winds 180, not impossible. And I'll read the discussion when I get a break and catch my breath, that it could go 185 or 190. Now, an important thing, and you're home, you're going, that's coming here, that's coming here. It's coming here, but the environment around us, from Florida to the southwest, does not support a hurricane this strong. There'll be increased shear. There'll be some dry air. So there will be a weakening trend as it heads our way. So we're not looking at a pristine environment, thank goodness, from this point all the way until it approaches our coast. And rain will start to increase tomorrow. So here is the numbers. And I have not looked at the track yet. I don't expect there to be much change. So there you go. 180 mile an hour, Cat 5, picking up a little bit speed now. The trough is beginning to pick it up. So it'll stay east, and then the trough picks it up, and it'll start accelerating to the northeast. So again, looking at this for the first time with you, and there really isn't any big shift in the track. And until we see any model, the suites of models begin to change, I'm not expecting there to be any big forecast shifts. One thing the Hurricane Center does, it does not flip-flop. It doesn't go, it usually sticks with continuity over time, and that's really the best way to go. So a Category 3 near us, this is the point of the 3 is over Tampa Bay at 2 a.m. on Thursday. 2 p.m. on Wednesday afternoon, it's a Cat 4. And then weakening on approach, but I mean, obviously, even if this was a 2, let's say it went down to a mid-range 2, it's still going to bring with it an incredible storm surge, higher than Helene from the point of landfall south. So if you go just by this track and you say, okay, let's say this comes close to verifying, what's it going to mean? It means essentially everything north of this line is going to have an east and northeast wind for the most part. There will be high water, no doubt, because it's going to push water along the way. But the wind's blowing offshore from the point of landfall south. And this is not, we don't know if this is going to be exactly where it's going to be, but I'm trying to explain to you how the surge is going to work. So if it is here, everything along the coast, I'm talking Anna Maria, I'm talking Lido, I'm going all the way down to Fort Myers, is going to have a south and southwest wind, probably about 100 to 120 miles an hour, along with the water that the hurricane is going to push. And that's why the storm surge numbers are going to be up there. 10, 12, maybe 13 feet. That is higher than we saw during Helene. So this is going to be a big problem. And then inland, we're going to have wind issues. The thing about Debbie and with Helene, the inland areas miss most of it. I mean, squalls, showers, a couple tornado warnings, but not bad. This is going to bring with it a swath of wind. It'll be weaker on the East Coast, but if it moves quickly, this is the type of storm, and we saw this during Charlie. Remember Charlie caused all that damage in Orlando? This could certainly, if the track ends up near Orlando, they could have so wide-ranging impacts, not only along our West Coast, but all the way to the East Coast, even though it's going to weaken along the path. And we'll pay attention to the computer models, but I'll tell you, pretty soon we throw the models away because the storm gets so close and we end up just kind of watching it and kind of seeing if it follows the track. Because once the hurricane gets picked up and accelerates northeast ahead of the trough, it's pretty much locked in. And it's not going up here. It's not going down here. Once it gets in that channel ahead of the trough, it kind of moves along, and then the forecasting, for lack of a better term, just gets easier. And again, we have a lot more to go on this, and we'll talk about specific storm surge numbers and wind impacts at about 5:20. Back to you.
All right, Paul, thank you. Take a look at this traffic on I-4. It's a live look from the FDOT camera showing I-4 east of Highway 27. A lot of people are evacuating ahead of Hurricane Milton. That's a good thing, but it is going to be slow going. The state has activated its emergency shoulder use plan, which allows cars to use the shoulder on eastbound I-4 and portions of I-75 north. Signs along the way will alert drivers on when to enter and exit the shoulder. We have a lot to tell you about, and we're going to start in Hillsborough County. Mandatory evacuations are in place for zones A and B and for all mobile home and manufactured homes.
Now, also, Hillsborough County schools, as you probably know, are closed through Wednesday at least because some of them serve as shelters. There are 9 shelters around Hillsborough County, the majority of which are pet-friendly. Officials, though, want you to consider shelters a last resort if you have nowhere else to go.
Please prepare quickly and get out of the city. What we have said before still holds true. You hide from the wind and run from the water, and you don't have to run far. You don't have to go to another state. You just have to get to higher ground.
One other thing they added, if you still have debris left over to pick up from Hurricane Helene, which most people do, most people that had any damage, officials are urging you to secure it. Try to put it in some enclosed area like a garage or shed. I know that doesn't sound like fun, having to move all that stuff again, but you don't want that to become projectiles. If you are trying to dispose of it before Milton gets here, the governor has issued an executive order requiring all disaster debris management sites and landfills to allow 24/7 drop-off. So you could do this at 2 o'clock this morning if you need to. Up to 4,000 National Guardsmen have also been called in to help remove that debris.
Now, for those who need to evacuate and rely on public transportation, HART is offering free rides until it suspends service at noon tomorrow. The Tico Line streetcar will also stop running at the same time. Tampa International Airport suspending all commercial and cargo operations beginning tomorrow at 9 a.m. Peter O'Knight, Tampa Executive and Plant City airports are also closing. TPA will reopen as soon as it's safe to do so after a damage assessment. So you're urged to contact your airline if this impacts an upcoming flight.
And St. Pete Clearwater International Airport will also close tomorrow afternoon after its final flight departs. In Pinellas County, mandatory evacuations are now in place for everyone in zones A, B, and C, and that includes businesses. Now, those evacuation orders are impacting more than 500,000 people in Pinellas County. That's more than half the county. And for many of them, this is the second time they have been ordered to evacuate in less than 2 weeks. They did it during Helene. Well, many of them did. Some stayed behind, sadly. Fox 13's Kaylee Tracy live in Treasure Island, one of the hard-hit areas there, hit hard by Helene. It's also a spot where crews are trying to work 24/7 to remove all that debris that Helene left behind before Milton gets here. Right, Kaylee?
Yeah, right. One note on that debris in just a minute, but back to those evacuation orders. The Pinellas County leaders here just a little while ago saying their number one priority right now is that everyone makes it out of this storm alive, and they're pleading with you. If you're under that mandatory evacuation zone, you leave by Wednesday morning at the latest. Again, it's more than half of Pinellas County that is now under that mandatory evacuation order. They say Helene was bad, we know that, but Milton will be worse. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says starting at 7 p.m. tonight, the barrier islands will only be open to residents, business owners, debris operators, and rideshare drivers helping people evacuate. By 7 p.m. tomorrow, the barrier islands will close to everyone. Local and state crews, as we've heard, and contractors have been working 24/7 to remove Helene debris. But county officials say realistically, with millions of cubic yards of debris, they won't be able to move it all by the time Milton arrives.
And I'm very concerned as well. We've got homes that are structurally unsound that are going to come down, and this next one will have even more debris. But the current debris is going to become missile hazards, in a Cat 4 storm. So there's no place on the island that's safe. You've got to get off the island, and it is a factor of water and this time wind with all the debris.
And anyone can now take storm debris to the solid waste disposal facility in Pinellas County through the 34th Street gate. That's 24/7. St. Pete also announcing they have a new debris site for residents and private haulers on 72nd Street North. That's across from Azalea Park. That is open 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. As we heard from officials across the Tampa Bay area, county officials here in Pinellas, they're also asking before you leave for Milton, secure any debris that may still be left outside your home. Either put it in a garage or somewhere enclosed, or put a tarp on it to secure it if you can, and turn your power off if you are able as well. Now, as far as the timing of this latest mandatory evacuation here in Pinellas County, officials say it was a massive, complex operation to evacuate those priority residents, including long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, hospitals, and special needs residents in zones A, B, and C. We saw that yesterday and today. They wanted to give them a head start before they issued these mandatory evacuations for A, B, and C and all mobile homes across Pinellas County, which we saw just a little over an hour ago. But the biggest thing, it's pretty sobering what these leaders are telling us. Leave now. Leave now if you are able. Get out now. And we've seen all this debris out here. Just another safety hazard that they want you away from during Milton. Guys, back to you.
Yeah, right, Kaylee. And maybe the greatest motivator in get out, if you're in one of those zones, and I hate to be grim here, is that how many people died during Helene that did not or could not evacuate? 15 in Pinellas County?
Right.
Yeah.
There were about a dozen, the sheriff noting that as well in his press conference not too long ago.
All right. It's a message that has to be taken seriously. Thank you, Kaylee. The Pinellas Suncoast Transit Authority is suspending service at 2 p.m. tomorrow. So if you're evacuating, just know that this bus line is providing free transit up until that time, 2 p.m. tomorrow. That includes all PSTA routes, the Jolly Trolley, and the Looper. After that, PSTA will assist the county with emergency evacuations until it's unsafe to do so. Of course, up and down the coast of Sarasota and Manatee counties, homes that were battered by Helene have been ripped apart, and the debris is still sitting there waiting to be picked up.
And those island towns are expected to see possibly double the amount of storm surge that Helene brought. Linemen in their trucks have been staged in Sarasota outside of Robarts Arena, ready to respond to power outages as they occur. Fox 13's Kimberly Cuisin joins us live from Anna Maria Island in Manatee County, where officials have extended evacuation orders for zones A, B, and now C. And Kim, this area, they've seen so much happen already.
Well, Linda, as many have said today, this feels like another punch in the gut. It was just over a week ago. You can still see the water line right here on this building. This is one of the smaller water lines from Hurricane Helene. And we continue to get the alerts right now for potential storm surge. But you go from the water line and then you see all the belongings that people have ripped out, the drywall, the personal items, as they try to save their homes and their businesses. Now it's become a race against the clock to get out what they can. And evacuation orders went into effect for the barrier islands here in Manatee County at 2 p.m. Manatee County has opened up 8 shelters to welcome those who have nowhere else to go. Now, trucks are working around the clock to pick up as much debris as they can, and they will continue to do so as long as it is safe. Now, come tomorrow night, law enforcement with the Holmes Beach Police Department will be evacuating those still left out here. Now, many spent today getting important documents and equipment off the island and to higher ground. That's with the Holmes Beach Police Department and the city of Holmes Beach. And they say after what happened with Helene, everyone needs to be off the island before Milton arrives.
They choose that, then they get what they got coming to them. It's going to be a bad storm. It looks like it's hitting us directly. This is not the place you want to be. Don't stay here. Don't call us. We're not going to be able to help you. If you call us, we'll tell you, give us your address, and we'll come see you tomorrow.
Now, power, water, and sewer will be shut off to the island. Holmes Beach is preparing for about double the storm surge they saw just over a week ago. And there are still so many throughout Manatee and Sarasota counties working to recover from Tropical Storm Debbie, Hurricane Helene, and now Milton has left so many concerned for themselves, their friends, and their family. I want to show you right behind me just some of these debris piles. Now, crews again will be working around the clock until they can no longer do so. But these debris piles are still all up and down the island. We've seen several trucks leaving, but the problem is there's just so much of it to pick up. And the Holmes Beach Police Department says the Panama City Police Department will be staging, and once it's safe to come back onto the island, they will help facilitate that along with the Holmes Beach Police Department. But as of right now, everyone's just working to get what they can and hopefully get off before it's too late. Linda, back to you.
Let's hope that everybody does. Kimberly Cuisin reporting live. Thank you. And as Kim mentioned, in the addition to the evacuation order for Anna Maria Island and Manatee County zones A, B, and C, Sarasota County is also under evacuation orders, and those are in place for zones A and B, as well as mobile homes and houseboats too. Schools in both counties are closed through Wednesday.
Well, there is obviously a tremendous amount of information being released for residents of every city and county in this area. So if you haven't heard the update for your area yet, just stay with us.
In our next half hour, we're going to be heading north to Pasco County. We'll also get an update from emergency officials in Hernando, Citrus, and Polk counties. But first, power, a big concern for many of us, even if you're not in an evacuation zone. We check in with the big 3 utility companies to see what plans they have in place to restore our power quickly, but say we should prepare to be without it for a while.
And remember, you can always go to our website, fox13news.com. We have a county-by-county guide, easy to find right there on the main page. It has all the information on closures, sandbagging locations, shelter locations, and hours, plus updated forecast from our Fox 13 weather team. Stay with us.
Fox 13 Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
Just going over some of the information from the 5 o'clock discussion from the Hurricane Center, and just a couple things stuck out, and a lot of it to me is the wording that is used, and you can go even at home to the National Hurricane Center website, and the discussion is somewhat technical, talking about different elements in the atmosphere that will govern the intensity and the direction. Just a lot of scientific talk there because it is a discussion among meteorologists. But one of the lines in there is really starking. That's just kind of said this could be the worst hurricane event in memory along the West Coast. I'm gonna print it out and read it. I'm kind of paraphrasing it, but you get the idea. This is going to be a big deal for our West Coast, not only along the coast, because we know the storm surge is going to be a huge problem, but the momentum of the storm, even though it's going to be weakening, is going to move right across the peninsula. So this is going to be a storm that'll impact really everybody from where it makes landfall to where it exits the state along the East Coast. I mean, obviously, Daytona, Melbourne, and Cocoa will not have the type of wind or storm surge we get here, because obviously it's bigger and it's moving onshore, but there'll be impacts all the way from our coast all the way to the East Coast as a storm is going to cut across the state. That obviously is different than Helene and Debbie that paralleled our state. These are watches and warnings. We have up these. We get a hurricane warning really for everybody. The entire viewing area has a hurricane warning, and that hurricane warning extends all the way just about to the East Coast, almost maybe 20 miles to the west of the coast, and includes Orlando. Orlando has a hurricane warning in effect. And then we're talking about the storm surge is going to be a big problem as well. Let's move ahead now. This is the 5 o'clock advisory. Top winds are about 180. I think it maintains intensity tonight into tomorrow morning. There'll be fluctuations. There may be undergoing what we call an eye wall replacement cycle. Yeah, that's a thing. As hurricanes mature, sometimes the eye walls kind of contract and expand. Sometimes one develops, another one goes away. When that process occurs, and they're tough to predict, there's some temporary weakening, and then usually the storm can pick up again in intensity. The storm is being picked up by a trough. The speed is going to increase, and once it starts moving northeast, so by this time tomorrow, even tomorrow morning when you see Dave and Val on good day, they'll have a good sense of where the storm is going to go. It'll cut right across the state. This is not a sure thing. This is not a lock that the 3 is going to be right over Tampa Bay at this time. But generally speaking, inside this cone and right here, and that includes our entire area. So we're at a point now with this track that, let's say, boy, the forecasting, the models are kind of off. It didn't really work out. So let's say that happens. It still ends up here and here. That's all us. That's all us. We're not here. We're everywhere in our 10-county viewing area. So that's the problem. We're not in a position where this is going to, pivot and move down to Marco Island or pivot and get up towards Perry again. Anywhere in here's us. So that is really essentially the problem. Now, on the new advisory, they actually upped the storm surge numbers. The problem still is, if the hurricane moves onshore, let's say where that track verifies, it's going to be tough to get these numbers up here. Why? Because here, the wind's blowing this way. It's going to go out to sea. So to have a 5 or 10-foot storm surge with an east wind at 80, 90 miles an hour is tough. There'll be some high water, but generally speaking, in fact, not generally, it is. The highest storm surge will be the point of landfall south. The point of landfall north is usually not a big deal because the wind's going the other way. It's blowing the water out. And that's why Tampa Bay is emptied with hurricanes passing south of us. These are bigger numbers now. And this is all going to verify only if the path is kind of like this or like this. If the path is, south of us, these numbers will be tough to verify. So these are not absolute numbers yet. But this is exactly what the Hurricane Center has to do because we're not sure yet exactly where the landfall point is. So all this makes sense, even though probably they'll have to be adjusted. Because we got a ways to go, we just all have to plan for a worst case scenario until we exactly know where that track is locked in. So there's a lot more to talk about. We'll have off and on showers, and the weather goes downhill certainly by Wednesday morning, and we're back in a few minutes.
Excuse me, sorry. I need to cancel my membership.
Disgusting.
They said I had to come in person to cancel.
You have your birth certificate?
No, I think my mom has it in Ohio.
Canceling your gym membership is hard. Hiring Morgan & Morgan for your injury is easy.
Excuse me, members, we have a quitter. Forget it. Yeah, I'll keep it. It's this way.
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, is easy.
We just heard Paul mentioning this too, but we will emphasize this. Power companies that serve the Tampa Bay area say you should prepare to be without power for a long time.
As Hurricane Milton strengthens, the 3 power companies that service our area say they're as ready as they can be to get the lights back on once they go out. Fox 13's Evan Axelbank is live at TECO headquarters in downtown Tampa with the latest for us. Evan.
Yeah, this is not about keeping the power on. It's about getting the power back on once it goes out, and they're playing a game of musical chairs to do it. While meteorologists predict the track, intensity, and timing of Milton, there's one thing no one disputes.
If you're anywhere near that cone, certainly you should prepare to have power interruptions. That's just the reality of what we're dealing with.
The 3 major power companies that serve Tampa Bay, TECO, Duke, and FP&L, say they have no doubt that at least some of their 2.3 million customers will lose power. And it'll be for a while.
Widespread extended power outages.
They will have extended outages.
Customers should expect to have widespread and extended outages.
And how quickly can crews get from staging areas in West Tampa, Central Pinellas, and Sarasota to the downed power lines and then repair them? The first order of business is always hospitals, 911 centers, and sewage facilities. Then it's about bang for their buck.
Main feeder lines may serve 2,000 people. If we can repair those lines and get 2,000 people on, that's where we start.
Further, those lines then branch off into smaller neighborhoods and businesses. The crews that will be out scouring are being pulled not only from hometown teams, but also from other states. Some are already helping in Georgia and North Carolina, so FP&L is pulling teams from the far west.
We are strategically pre-positioning those crews so that as soon as it's safe to get out and restore power, we can do just that.
The thousands of line workers will be helping to get power back on to people like Lynette Bailey of Tampa. She stocked up on ice today to try and keep her food from spoiling.
How I ended up here was Hurricane Michael from 2018. So I've lost everything before and came here to regroup and restart.
Bill Cummings is stocking up on gas for his generator.
I'm very worried because we lost power during Helene for about 20 hours before it even started raining or anything.
The governor said there were more than 2 million people during Hurricane Helene who lost power, but he does say they were able to get it restored, most of the power companies at least, in record time. So we're going to see how many lose power this time and for how long. Linda, Chris.
Yeah, we are thankful for everything that they do. Evan Axelmink reporting live for us. Thank you.
All right, coming up, we are checking in with all of our emergency officials, county by county. We will take you through this. The message they're sending to people in Pasco County is next.
To get the most out of your cell phone battery, consider shallow charging. Instead of draining your battery to zero, recharge it 50%. When you charge it up, stop at about 90%. Once a month, you should run it down to 5% and recharge so it can recalibrate its self-assessment. When charging is done, remove your phone from the charger. Electronics will age faster if they're left plugged in when fully charged. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely. If you are relying on Amazon reviews to help you decide on a purchase, heads up. According to FakeSpot, the following categories are the most likely to have bogus or biased feedback: watches, Christmas decor, watch bands, sweaters, and pullovers. But the top spot for fake reviews? Slippers. FakeSpot says 71% on Amazon have fake reviews, with thousands of products and barely any name brands. I'm Steve Noviello. That's my 2 cents. Spend it wisely.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. A new study found that if you are older, over 60, even moderate amounts of alcohol intake can increase your risk of cancer. Now, look, I don't want to be your personal Oppenheimer and the destroyer of your world, but look, limit the amount of alcohol. Maybe a mocktail is just what the doctor ordered. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hey, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense to help you cut your impulse spending. Remove your credit card information from the retail websites where you shop, like Amazon or Walmart. If it's stored, it's just too easy to click and spend. Having to enter your credit card information each time gives you more time to think before you buy.
Well, evacuation orders are now in effect in Pasco County as well. That includes people in zones A, B, and C, along with anyone living in mobile homes or low-lying areas.
Emergency officials are warning people there's already a gridlock on US 19 as people from other counties are also trying to get out. And Fox 13's Kylie Jones is joining us live in Newport Richey with more on that. Hi, Kylie.
Hey, Linda, major storm surge and major winds. That is the main message that emergency officials here in Pasco County are trying to hammer home. Now, like so many others all up and down the coast in the Tampa Bay region, people are still without homes. They're still without jobs. But emergency officials are asking people to do anything they can to get prepared for this. We have a sandbag site that is still very busy behind me, and 200 feet down the road that way, we have a county debris staging site. Unfortunately, those mounds of debris only account for a fraction of what is left. County crews have been out all day trying to pick up all of that debris so it doesn't become what emergency officials call flying missiles.
Pasco County will be impacted with catastrophic surge
catastrophic winds.
The message to people along the coast in Pasco County is to get out now. Mandatory evacuation orders are in effect for zones A, B, and now C, plus mobile and manufactured homes and all low-lying areas.
This is a storm that not to be played with. It's a storm that is going to be unprecedented.
Shelters in Pasco are open at Centennial Middle School, 5A High School, River Ridge Middle and High Schools, Wesley Chapel High School, and Fasano Hurricane Center. Unfortunately, this is all too familiar here in Pasco County.
As we're trying to restore, now we're back to buttoning everything up again.
In on the Gulf flooded for the first time ever during Hurricane Helene less than 2 weeks ago. Owner Mike Malico says he's had to put furniture and appliance deliveries and restoration projects all on hold to instead sandbag and board up.
It's frightening. You know, we've never had to experience back-to-back hurricanes like this. This is unprecedented, and the unknown is what's killing us.
The remaining mounds of trash and debris from Helene are posing an added uphill battle.
I encourage you that anything that can become a flying missile, wood, 2x4s, metal, please try to store them back within your house. And any large objects that can float, dressers, refrigerators.
The West Pasco Resource Recovery Center on Hayes Road is open for debris drop-off. As a last resort, emergency officials encourage people to secure debris in their garage or even with bungee cords if possible. People around the county aren't taking this lightly as they prepare, but hope for the best.
It's been draining. It's been mentally and physically draining. Trying to get this place back open. This might be the first time I actually evacuate.
And shelters in Pasco County are open right now. They are accepting pets. We have all of that information on fox13news.com. Go Pasco is also offering free rides to shelters for as long as the weather permits. One other thing emergency officials want to remind people, if you haven't evacuated yet and you still can, turn your main breaker off so if and when you do lose power, when it's then restored, you don't get that power surge. Reporting live in Pasco County, Kylie Jones, Fox 13 News.
Good advice there. Thank you, Kylie. In Hernando County, residents who live west of US 19 are under a mandatory evacuation. That's zones A, B, and C. The county has 4 sandbag locations. Those will close in just a few minutes at 6 p.m., but they reopen at 9 a.m., and we have those locations listed on our website, fox13news.com. Hernando is also opening 3 shelters tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Now, during Helene, unprecedented storm surge caused damage to at least 500 homes and buildings in Hernando County, but officials fear it could be worse this time around.
We could expect anywhere up to 5 to 10 feet of storm surge that is equal or somewhat a little bit greater than we experienced in Hurricane Helene. So please be prepared. Please do not focus on the cone of uncertainty, as the cone is just focused on the center of the storm. The impacts are going to be much, much wider.
Now, they told us that more contractors are being brought in to help remove the debris that was left behind by Helene. The main landfill and the West Side Community Center are open for debris drop-off, and the West Side Community Center is open 24 hours.
In Citrus County, people who live in campers and mobile or manufactured homes have been ordered to evacuate starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow, and this is a precautionary measure for people whose homes may not be able to withstand strong wind gusts. When Helene rolled through Citrus County 11 days ago, water was the biggest problem. It damaged about 300 homes in that county. The consequence of all that water can be seen here. The piles of debris still line the neighborhoods, streets, and we heard from the sheriff this morning, who's encouraging residents to remove the debris if you possibly can, or find a place to put it safely, like your garage.
Our landfill is open, and we've got haulers taking debris out to the landfill 24 hours a day, 7 days a week right now, until the storm gets to the point where we can no longer remove debris. And the real concern for that is if we do get any amount of storm surge or high winds, even if we get brushed up by a Category 1 hurricane, some of that debris can become missiles and, of course, endanger our citizens and also endanger those first responders that are out there taking care of our community.
Citrus schools are closed tomorrow and Wednesday.
If you haven't done so already, now would be a good time to download the Fox Local app, especially if you're evacuating and you won't be around your television. This has county-by-county updates. It's got forecast videos from our weather team with the latest discussion on all the tracks and advisories. And it also has all of our live newscasts, like you could be watching us right now on that app. It's free to download for Apple and Android devices. And if you do lose power during the storm, remember several local radio stations will be carrying our newscasts. You can listen to our hurricane coverage on 102.5 The Bone, 97X, and 101.5 The Vibe.
They escaped Helene, but the impacts of Milton will likely be felt far inland. After the break, we head to Polk County, where emergency operations have been activated. The biggest concerns facing Polk. Next.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. Listen, new research finds that if you're older, over 65, if you exercise, you're going to improve your memory. Now, it actually helps with a part of the brain called the hippocampus. If you exercise, you will improve your memory and reduce your risk of developing dementia. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hi, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense to save you some money on travel. Before you book your next flight, check out the new Airline Customer Service Dashboard. It's on transportation.gov. If your flight is delayed or canceled, it'll show you which airlines will rebook you for free, plus which airlines will offer free hotel or meal vouchers if you get stuck. That's a big savings.
Well, the Hillsborough Sheriff's helicopter was up over I-75 earlier, showing significant backups northbound as people try to escape Milton's cone. I-275 heading into Pasco County is also seeing heavy traffic. And as we showed you earlier this hour, I-4 going west is nearly at a standstill. As evacuees begin to move away from the coast, it's important to remember that unlike Helene, Hurricane Milton will be felt by people living inland. And Fox 13's Carla Byron is in Polk County to show us how they're ramping up preparations.
Polk County's Emergency Management Operations Center was fully activated on Sunday. Officials are preparing for rainfall that can cause localized flooding, strong winds that can damage homes and power lines, and downed tree limbs that can block roads. There are no hurricane evacuation zones in Polk County like the coastal counties for storm surge. However, officials say shelters should be people's last resort.
If you're in a mobile home, a manufactured home, an RV, or a camper, some type of structure that may not survive high winds, Plan A should be a friend, a family member, somebody from church that does not have to leave their home and make a plan to stay with them.
19 shelters, including pet-friendly shelters and special needs shelters, will be open across Polk County on Tuesday. In total, they have the capacity to house 38,000 people. Widespread power outages are also anticipated that could last for days. Lakeland Electric's crew are pre-staged ahead of the storm, and there are 100 linemen from in and out of the state ready to provide mutual aid post-storm.
We start with all the critical feeders and customers that we have. Those are the municipal, the utility customers, to make sure that we have powers, that we can restore power. Hospitals, fire stations, police stations, nursing homes, those types of facilities.
The utility then finds the largest outage to restore and works around the clock to the last and smallest outage. It's important to always prepare for the worst. In Polk County, Carla Byron, Fox 13 News.
Sandbag sites from Lakeland to Kissimmee will also be open tomorrow from 8 a.m. to noon. Stay with us. We'll have another update from Paul when we come back.
Welcome back. You guys know Clearwater Beach is full of debris right now, thrown out furniture and appliances from homes and hotels damaged by Helene, not to mention all the sand still covering the island. Now, at any other time, the beach might be full of tourists here in early October, but now residents are evacuating for a second time, and they wonder what will be left when they come home. Fox 13's Lloyd Sowers has more from Clearwater Beach.
Here at Pier 60 on Clearwater Beach, the first storm created the Florida mountains, hundreds of tons of sand that has to be sifted before it can go back on the beach. But that is on hold while we deal with Milton.
There are tons and tons of debris, stuff that was trashed by Hurricane Helene and now left behind along the streets as many evacuate again, like Christy Bacabella, who lived on Indian Shores when Helene hit.
So I took everything from there to here and now evacuating again. The plan is to pick up my daughter and go to Winter Haven.
Clearwater says they had trucks and contractors lined up before the storms, and they'll work 24/7 so that pieces from people's homes don't become flying missiles in 100-mile-an-hour winds. But Milton won't wait for them to finish.
At some point, we will have to stop the collection and move those assets out of the area. And when we do that, we will ask people to bring inside what they can.
But so much will have to be left behind as people leave their homes ahead of Milton.
I can't do anything about it. Can't worry about what I can't control. If it's here, it's here. If it's not, so be it.
Officials want everyone off the beach before the storm hits. We are talking about Milton, the second part of our little hurricane double feature that nobody wants to see. On Clearwater Beach, Lloyd Sowers, Fox 13 News.
Paul is back with us now. Let's just talk about what that last gentleman said. Really, you just have to kind of prepare and then understand that you don't have control over what happens while you're gone.
The only control you have is over what you do.
Yes.
And the decisions you make. I made a post earlier. This is the days leading up to a hurricane event are critical. You got to make smart decisions.
Yes.
Think about what you're going to do to keep your family safe. I know the stress about the house. Some people have no drywall in their homes right now. They go, "Are you going to be kidding me? This is happening again." Can't control that. You'll get back on that at some point because hurricane season, believe it or not, will end. And we'll get some good weather, and we'll be done with this nonsense, and we can get our lives together. But between now and then, the biggest decisions you can make is keeping you and your family safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I've heard you say it before recently and during Helene that the decision to evacuate is really a personal one, and it comes down to, do I feel safe in my home, in my castle?
Well, if you're not in an evacuation zone,
right?
If you're in an evacuation zone, you got to go. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you saw what Helene did, and you're thinking about staying, you're crazy. You're nuts.
Okay. Well, on that note, I want to point out something here. A lot of people are wondering, okay, I'm going to evacuate, but what is when is my last chance to leave? When does that window close? I mean, when you look at the traffic out there, the interstates are already full.
Yeah, I mean, I always say sooner is better.
Yeah.
My daughter drove back to UF this morning, and she's texting me, boy, what's all the traffic? What's all the traffic? What do you My daughter really in tune with things. Dad, the traffic's kind of crazy out here. What's going on? Is a hurricane coming?
Right. Yeah.
So from this point on, the traffic will get bad. I mean, I guess it makes sense to maybe leave at midnight or 1 a.m. Mm-hmm. That could help. But getting back to what you said earlier about evacuating if you're not in a flood zone, that is a personal choice. I'm not going to sit here and tell people that are not in an evacuation zone that you need to leave. It's really about, what's my house like? How well built was my house? Do I have big trees? Imagine you have a house and you got there's 2 pine trees over there that have been kind of shaky, old, root structure not good, and you go, they could fall in the house. So we're going to leave. But if you live in a house that there's nothing around, and you say we're going to you're probably best to stay. So everyone has their own little tolerance for dealing with a hurricane event, really.
Yeah.
And storm surge. So high tide with Helene, that played a factor.
Yeah, and we'll get into that. We need to do a graphic on that. There's only 2 tide cycles, I think, Wednesday into Thursday. There's usually 4 a day. There's 2.
Is that good or bad?
The high is higher than it was in Helene, and the low is lower. So we're kind of hoping that we will get maybe towards a low cycle.
Okay. All right.
Okay, we're getting into weather now, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right, let me go grab. I need a little clicker to check. Or we look at that graphic for a long time. So I got to walk over here and grab the clicker because I need to change the maps. And then let me go back and just give me a second because we wanted to show the track. I'm just going to go back one graphic, and then we'll get into this. There is still time. We should have said this. There's still times for there to be adjustments. I mean, there's still a pretty significant error this far away. So when you see the symbol, I know it's really difficult at home not to see the line and see the symbol, and you just say, well, that's where it's going to be at. And usually it's not. Usually it'll be a little bit off either way. It's generally in the cone, because remember, the cone is not a path of the weather. The cone is based on the past 5 years of statistics of how accurate the Hurricane Center forecasting has been over the past 5 years. And the cone is drawn that's where we think the center of the storm is going to stay, not where the weather is going, where the center. The center here is very well defined, and still lots of lightning around the eye wall, showing turbulence and a storm that could even intensify a bit more. Here's the coast of the Yucatan. The 5 o'clock advisory, top winds of 180, moving east at 10. It'll parallel the northern coast of the Yucatan. All of this water down here was pretty much untouched from Helene. Some cooler weather, well, cooler water here, but not much. This is where the loop current is. And then when the hurricane approaches our state, the environment is going to change dramatically. There'll be some shear. There'll be some dry air. So there's going to be some weakening. This is not going to make landfall on our west coast as a Category 5. But even if it gets down to a 2, which is not impossible, it's still going to bring along with it the surge. I told you earlier that Katrina, on its approach to Louisiana and coastal Mississippi, Category 5, Category 5, Category 5, Category 5, Category 3 on landfall, but the surge was at Cat 5 levels just because it was bringing the wall of water with it. So it didn't really matter that the hurricane was a Cat 3 at landfall, because the surge, which of course we know, you remember the video from Katrina, what caused all the deaths in Katrina? Was it wind? No, it was all about the water. And of course some problems with the levees and some bad engineering, but still, it was the water that caused the deaths during Katrina. So get away from the water. Hurricane cuts across the state, weakens, but brings with it hurricane force winds. Hurricane warnings are up. Look at the new storm surge numbers now, 10 to 15 feet. Now, is all of this going to verify? I don't think so, because if the hurricane does this, these numbers are too high, okay? If the hurricane does this, these numbers are too high because the winds here are going the other way. So, and the Hurricane Center has no choice because we don't know exactly where the hurricane's going to go. So it wouldn't be smart to try to guess and go, say, 10 to 15 here and 2 to 4 up here. That just wouldn't be prudent. So these numbers will be adjusted based on where the storm makes landfall. Again, I can't stress this enough. The big storm surge is the point of landfall south, like this. So say the hurricane's here, this is the big storm surge because the winds north of it going out. And then if the hurricane is up here, okay, the storm surge is higher here and these numbers low. So when you saw that big range here, this is kind of broad brush because we don't know yet where the landfall will occur. In summary, there's going to be a big storm surge, and we'll kind of fine tune that as we get closer to Wednesday. Again, a lot more coming up. Back to you guys.
Oh, thank you. Well, coming up, staying connected during a time of disaster can mean the difference between life and death. After the break, we'll tell you about a life-saving iPhone feature you probably didn't even know you had.
Hey, it's Dr. Mike. New data finds that at ages 44 and 60, you end up aging more quickly from a biological point of view. Now, what can you do, folks? You need to limit your alcohol, get more sleep, make sure you exercise, and certainly don't smoke, and you will invest in your health 401k. I'm Dr. Mike Sirigliano with the Fox Medical Team.
Hey, I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense. Okay, we all know you can save money at the grocery store buying generic or store brands. But did you know you could save an average of 40%? CNET compared prices on 20 items and cut the bill from $125 to $75. And that's savings. That can add up.
In the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, some storm victims found a lifeline through a relatively new iPhone feature.
Yeah, it's called satellite messaging. Now, we want you to hear this. You may not know you have it right now, but it could be very important, and we hope you don't need it, but it's a lifesaver if you do. Satellite messaging was part of Apple's recent iOS 18 update. It allows you, if you don't even have data or Wi-Fi, you can connect to an emergency service provider via satellite. That means even if cellular and wireless service have gone down, you can still get in touch with your people. In order for it to work, again, you need that update, and you need to have an iPhone 14 or later version. You have to do that iOS 18 update, and once you're in a place that has no cellular or Wi-Fi coverage, you'll get a prompt to connect to the nearest satellite within your messaging app. iMessage has to be turned on for this to work. And here's the thing, you have to be outside with a clear view of the sky or horizon. Again, you're communicating with a satellite there. Once you get that prompt in iMessages, it will allow you to send or receive messages.
That's a big deal.
Yeah, it is, really. And here's another thing, too. I know you're thinking, well, I don't have an iPhone. A similar feature is available for some Androids, including the Google Pixel 9. And carriers like Verizon are teaming up with satellite providers to try to offer this feature too. Contact your carrier to learn more.
All right, stay right there.
The Fox 13 6 o'clock news starts now.
As soon as I get my shutters up and my sandbags in, I'm probably out of here myself.
The story isn't quite told on the path, so preparing for the worst and hoping for the best.
That's right now at 6, preparing for a major hurricane, how people all across Florida's west coast are getting ready for Milton.
From Tampa Bay's #1 news station, this is the Fox 13 6 o'clock news.
Good evening, I'm Allie Corey.
And I'm Mark Wilson, glad to have you with us tonight. Hurricane Milton is the storm that's about to change lives as it heads for west central Florida's coast as a major hurricane. Let's start with Paul now with the very latest on the track and the forecast. What are you thinking?
Yeah, quite a day today. Last night, storm trying to getting better organized today. The rate of intensification, really, as much of a rate of intensification as I've ever seen. I'm trying to think, when have I seen a storm intensify this much? It's like Wilma did that. Like Rita intensified rapidly. There's been a long list of, but this one this morning, it was almost like when the Hurricane Hunter planes were out there today, it was almost every time they crossed the eye and got their data, the pressure dropped a lot. So the plane goes over, does the eye, goes around, does the eye again, dropped again. Go back and forth they go. It's like, this is incredible. Every single pass, the pressure was dropping. That's how quickly the storm was intensifying. It's leveled off now, but it's leveled off at 180 miles an hour. It'll parallel the north coast of the Yucatan. It's going to get picked up by a trough. And once the storm starts turning northeast, it's going to get into a flow ahead of a trough that really kind of eliminates any huge swings south or north. Kind of like the same thing when Helene was heading up towards the Big Bend. I mean, there could be, there was a time, remember the time that Tallahassee had a threat, kind of moved east of there. There could be that kind of pivot, but that's about it. It's not gonna be huge swings north or south, but even 50 miles makes a big, big difference to our population base. So we'll be paying attention to those 20, 30, 40, 50-mile changes, which certainly can happen. I know you see the 3 over Tampa Bay and you think, okay, that's gonna verify, it's gonna be there. Could it be? Sure. But based on the forecasting of the Hurricane Center this far away, anywhere here would still make perfect sense for it to be anywhere 30, 40 miles either side. I would still consider a very accurate forecast, and the storm is way down by the Yucatan. Hurricane will make landfall on our west coast. Watches and warnings now in effect, and life-threatening storm surge of up to 10 to 15 feet is likely along and to the south of where the center makes landfall. And as I said, hurricane warnings extend inland all the way to Orlando. More coming up at 6:20.
All right, Paul, thanks. We look forward to that. You know, things are happening very quickly tonight as we keep our eye on this hurricane. Let's turn to our evacuation orders right now that are already in effect all across the Tampa Bay area. We'll start in Hillsborough County. Zones A and B, and anybody who lives in a mobile or manufactured home is under an evacuation order. To Pinellas County, zones A, B, and C, that's more than really half the county. That's under evacuation orders as well. That also includes everyone who lives in mobile homes. We cannot overstate that enough. Manatee County has issued evacuations for zones A, B, C, and mobile homes. Remember, we're talking about hurricane-force winds. Many of these mobile homes cannot sustain them. This is how critical that is. All of Anna Maria Island has been ordered to evacuate starting at noon tomorrow. And then Sarasota County, zones A and B, mobile homes, houseboats, you have also been ordered to evacuate. Then in Pasco County, we've got evacuation orders including zones A, B, and C. And again, mobile homes, those in low-lying flood-prone areas. Hernando County, the residents west of US 19, which would include zones A, B, and C for them, they've all been ordered to evacuate as well. And then in Citrus County, starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow, there's a mandatory evacuation for anyone who's in a mobile home or a manufactured home. That is in Citrus.
And it does look like a lot of people are taking the evacuation orders seriously. Take a look at some of our highways, jam-packed. This is a live look right now at I-4. This is east of US 27. Those cars all heading east away from our coastline. The state has activated its emergency shoulder use plan, which allows cars to use the shoulder on eastbound I-4 and portions of I-75 north. Signs along the way will alert drivers when to enter and to exit the shoulder.
Yeah, remember, both Gandy Bridge and Courtney Campbell and Howard Franklin right now, all three of them are basically parking lots. They are moving, but they're very, very slow right now. Those evacuation orders in Pinellas County total more than 500,000 people. 6 shelters, including pet-friendly shelters, are also now open. Let's go to Fox 13's Kaylee Tracy live in Treasure Island, one of those mandatory evacuation zones. Hi there, Kaylee. I'd imagine with what happened just barely 2 weeks ago with Helene, they're probably expecting and maybe even hoping for those shelters to be full, huh?
Yeah, and the Treasure Island fire chief out here, he's not sugarcoating this at all, as a lot of officials are not. He told me earlier his sobering message for residents here on the barrier islands. He said, quote, if you get off the island with your life, you'll be ahead of the game. Similar messaging from county officials and the sheriff out here as well. Pinellas County officials warn, we know Helene was bad, but Milton will be worse. Sheriff Bob Gualtieri says starting at 7 p.m. tonight, just under an hour away, the barrier islands will only be open to residents, business owners, debris operators, and rideshare drivers helping people evacuate. By 7 p.m. tomorrow, the barrier islands will be closed to everyone. Local and state crews and contractors have been working 24/7 to remove Helene debris, but county officials say realistically, with millions of cubic yards of debris, they won't be able to move it all by the time Milton arrives. Officials are pleading with people to listen to the evacuation orders, which now includes more than half of Pinellas County.
We can't have a situation where we're getting all these calls for help and we can't access people, and we end up like we did in the last storm where we got multiple people that had died as a result of staying out there. So businesses need to shut down.
This is serious. There is no room for waiting. You must take action now. Our number one priority over the next few days is to make sure everyone gets through Milton alive.
Anyone can now take storm debris to the solid waste disposal facility in Pinellas County through the 34th Street gate. That's 24/7. And county officials also ask you before you leave for Milton, please secure any debris you may have left outside your home. Put a tarp over it, put it in your garage. Just try to make sure it is secure before you leave, and also turn off your power if you're able to. Now, as far as the timing of these latest mandatory evacuation orders, Pinellas County leaders say it was a massive, complex operation when it came to evacuating priority residents. Those were in long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, hospitals, and special needs residents in zones A, B, and C. We saw that earlier today and yesterday. They wanted to give them a head start before issuing this latest evacuation mandatory, again, for zones A, B, and C, and mobile homes across Pinellas County. And I have to tell you, it is eerily quiet out here, so hopefully a lot of people have listened to those messages. The only thing we've really heard are deputies escorting those debris trucks up and down the roads. Guys, back to you.
All right. Well, we know it's going to get busy there. Kaylee, thanks very much. Kaylee Tracy on Treasure Island tonight.
Well, as you can imagine, anxiety is pretty high up and down our coastline, especially in Sarasota and Manatee counties, where Helene really brought record storm surge just over a week ago. Hard to believe so many folks still cleaning up. And Fox 13's Kimberly Quizon is live for us in Holmes Beach. And I know, Kim, I can see you've got a ton of debris still behind you. Do you notice that there are still a lot of people out there, or does it feel like maybe a lot of them have already evacuated?
Allie, there's a handful of people still out here, but they are planning, most of them that we've talked to are planning to get off by tomorrow. Unfortunately, there are some locals out here that say that they are still going to stay, but they may change their minds, and I'm hoping they do so. I think one of those people may know who I'm talking to out here, but really out here, Allie, you can just sense really a sense of mixed emotions. You see the debris right out here. This was the recovery process just beginning here on Holmes Beach, and now there's another massive storm with its path set on us. From driving around to talking to residents, some feel sick, others feel hopeless, and many are just working to secure what they can.
Helene left a path of damage on Anna Maria Island. Now Milton could do even worse.
This is devastating. It's a punch in the gut for everybody out here that has been working so hard to rehab their houses and to get them ready so that they can do reconstruction.
Just about every home and business along Bradenton Beach, Holmes Beach, and Anna Maria sustained damage. With nearly double the storm surge expected, the Holmes Beach Police Department will be leaving the island Tuesday night. Water, electricity, and sewer services will be shut off as well. Chief William Tokacher has this message for residents.
If they choose that, then they get what they got coming to them. It's going to be a bad storm. It looks like it's hitting us directly. This is not the place you want to be. Don't stay here. Don't call us. We're not going to be able to help you.
In Sarasota, Robert Serino welcomed linemen once more, preparing to be sent to restore electricity once Milton passes. In neighborhoods near the Pinecraft community, Eric Schleback and his sons secured what they could.
Just preparing, putting loose stuff away, and hopefully the winds don't take it away.
2 months ago, this area flooded with Tropical Storm Debbie.
It's a resilient neighborhood. There's good people everywhere. The community really came together, and we felt it. A lot of the neighbors felt it. So whatever happens will happen, but we can still come together and try and rebuild or just move forward, hopefully, without minimal damage.
While this year's hurricane season has brought a lot of emotions from those in Sarasota and Manatee counties, those who live here are strong and ready for the sun to shine once more.
Worry brings out the worst in people. Worrying is, it's part of life, but it generally doesn't go well. So, I just hope everybody has a safe place.
Now, as you see these piles out here, Omar and I have seen several trucks running to try to get this debris off the streets, but there's just so much of it. Talking with the Holmes Beach Police Chief, he said that the debris trucks that are picking them up will continue running until it's no longer safe to do so. And as you and Mark had mentioned earlier, the evacuation zones have expanded into A, B, and C for Manatee County. Manatee County is running MCAT buses right now, picking up island residents who may have lost their cars to the flooding just over a week ago. 2 locations that you can get picked up. There's one on Bridge Street on Bradenton Beach, and then at the CVS on Holmes Beach. Really, this storm is not one to take lightly, and anybody that is staying out here really needs to think hard about leaving now or by tomorrow. Allie, back to you.
Yeah, unfortunately, Kim, we can't force people to leave, but maybe they'll change their mind, because we know the National Hurricane Center is saying this could be one of the worst our coast have ever seen. So let's hope they change their mind so we're not reporting on more deaths. Kim, thanks.
And those debris piles lining the streets like we see behind Kim right there, that's now an issue. Crews all across Tampa Bay are racing to collect as much debris as they can that's left over from Helene, but a lot of homeowners may have to come up with a plan of their own, or at least try. That's not what we want to hear as we got to evacuate. Fox 13's Aaron Mesmer is live in Tampa with more on this. Hi there, Aaron. What are you finding out about this?
Yeah, Mark, collection crews are ramping up their efforts, but city leaders are also urging homeowners who still have debris piles like this or larger to start making plans to do something with it, remove it themselves. Of debris, furniture, appliances, and other belongings line the streets on Davis Island.
And so we lost pretty much the contents of the house.
Some homeowners, like Sharon Usher, had a crew haul away some of the larger items that were ruined by Hurricane Helene.
The stove, the fridge, the couch, you name it.
But a pile of wood still remains, and with Hurricane Milton approaching, time is running out to get rid of it.
I'm worried that these things will become projectiles and, do further damage.
Or washing into the road and clogging storm drains. Tampa Mayor Jane Castor says the city is looking for any debris hauling groups, companies, or individuals who are licensed and insured to help. Debris that isn't removed by Tuesday evening should be stored away, the city's solid waste director says.
So if you can put it behind your home or primarily, if you can put it inside your garage or a shelter of some sort, something like a shed, that'd be great.
As we speak, the Florida Department of Emergency Management is working to expedite debris removal. Governor DeSantis' executive order requires all disaster debris management sites and landfills in counties impacted by Helene to allow 24/7 drop-off. Up to 4,000 National Guardsmen are being called in to help remove debris across the region. Some homeowners are taking matters into their own hands.
It's not going to be lining the streets. It's going to be all over the place.
Well, yeah, I was going to wait for the city to come by and pick it up until, Milton showed up. And then, and so it'd be probably a shot to the face to have to pick up all this stuff and then have it blown back around.
As for those who just can't do it themselves.
Hoping for the best, hoping that the city will come out and pick everything up.
Of course, they're not going to be able to get to everything in the next day or so. So, again, as you heard there, Mark, if people have some of this debris still sitting outside, they're asking them now is the time to collect it, put it somewhere in the house, around the house if you can, behind it, do something with it so it's not out there turning into a projectile or clogging the drains.
Yeah, I know it's a nice ask, but there are just miles and miles and miles of that. And as somebody who has a debris pile 3 times the size of that in my own front yard, it's the last thing on my mind. So hopefully some people will do what they can, but we will not blame them if they don't, for sure. Aaron, thanks much. Remember, you can always go to our website, fox13news.com. We've got a county-by-county guide with information on closures, sandbag locations, shelters, plus updated forecasts from our own weather team as well. So we did learn a lot 2 weeks ago from Helene, and unfortunately, many of the same areas will be threatened by storm surge again.
The most important thing here is to protect your life and your family and heed evacuation orders if one of them includes your area. Coming up at 6:30, we're going to sit down with Paul to talk more about Milton's potential impact in the wake of Helene and what you can do to be as prepared as possible for the storm.
Also ahead tonight, some important advice to keep in mind if you're among those evacuating. We know many of you are or are already doing so ahead of Milton. The do's and don'ts for those leaving town. We'll be right back.
I'm Heather Sullivan with Sullivan Smart Sense. Rental prices have skyrocketed 18% in 2 years, according to Redfin. So here's some tips to reduce your rent. Get a roommate. Shop for rentals in the winter when rents are lower. Consider privately owned rentals. Offer to pay a few months up front for a discount and offer to do repairs or office work for a lower rent.
So for those of you running out to get gasoline tonight, there is still some time, but keep in mind a lot of gas stations are already out.
They are, but we have some helpful tips for you. We want to bring in Fox 13's Ariel Placencia. She is live in Tampa. And Ariel, we know the rush to get the gas has been going on all day, but you have some advice for folks that they can maybe find some spots where there's still some gas available?
I do, Allie. We're going to talk about this very helpful map in just a little bit. But let me tell you what's going on right here at the Wawa on Dale Mabry. So we were here when they ran out of regular gas around 3:30 this afternoon. Staff told me that more gas should be on the way. But as of right now, they only have diesel and non-ethanol. And as you can see behind me, I mean, there is a very long line of people waiting to get it. And this is really a similar story that's playing out across gas stations in our county.
Ridiculous. This was actually short.
Sitting in line and waiting for gas was all part of hurricane prep for some Hillsborough County residents Monday.
Costco, Sam's, crazy. Wawa, crazy. But it is what it is.
Everyone's out. Mandatory evacuations began at 2:30 p.m. Monday for zones A and B in Hillsborough. Northbound traffic on I-75 was starting to get heavier by midday ahead of Hurricane Milton's looming arrival.
As God help us all. I feel bad.
Some residents planning to evacuate farther inland found that many Hillsborough County hotels were already filled up.
But when you look at what we've experienced over the last 10 to 14 days, it's been unique by any definition.
First thing Monday morning, the Hillsborough County Hotel and Motel Association said there were a few rooms available along the I-75 corridor between Brandon and New Tampa. But overall inventory was already limited to begin with, the organization says, after Pinellas County residents recently sought shelter in Hillsborough County hotels from Hurricane Helene.
We now are faced with how do we balance inventory, how do we balance availability.
Whether you're evacuating to a hotel or not, remember to take pictures of everything inside your house and make a list and pack all your medications.
It's important now, check your supply to begin with.
Pharmacies are allowed to refill prescriptions early since we are in a state of emergency. But if you're having problems, contact your physician first. After that,
You may look at your bottle and realize you haven't been to your doctor and you can't get a hold of your doctor and you have no refills. That would be a situation where you can go to our CentraCare Urgent Cares and talk to our providers and get a temporary refill of those medications.
and those Advent Health CentraCare Urgent Cares will be open until 8 o'clock tonight, I'm told. So that could be an option for you if you're looking to get a basic prescription filled. Now, let's talk about that gas one more time. So Gas Buddy, that company that does gas analytics, they have a very helpful interactive map online where you can basically put in your city and it'll give you a list of all the nearby gas stations that are open. And not only that, whether they have fuel or power or both. I posted a link to that map over on our website, fox13news.com. And Allie, that could be very helpful if you're out and about looking for gas later.
Yeah, I saw you in the 5 o'clock hour, and I already took a look at it, and it is very helpful. So Gas Buddy, definitely look at that before you just drive in circles, because I know so many people are doing that today, and it can be pretty frustrating. All right, Ariel, thanks.
And now, Fox 13 Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
So we expected rapid intensification today, and boy, did we get it. Look at the satellite presentation today. Some of the information coming in from the Hurricane Hunter planes was just jaw-dropping. I mean, we saw intensification rates almost unheard of, certainly in the Gulf of Mexico. What's interesting today, and goes to show you how strong this hurricane is, look at all the lightning kind of surrounding the eye. When you talk about hurricane events, they're not really big lightning producers at all. Why is it? You think big storms should be lots of lightning? No, because why? In a hurricane, the winds go around in a circle. Again, we're the lightning capital, North America. Why do we have so much lightning? Winds colliding, causing rising air. This is a whole different setup because winds are simply going around in a circle. There's no collisions, but there's so much turbulence around the eye, it's producing lightning. That almost always indicates a hurricane that's very strong and often a hurricane that is still intensifying. That's the eye. Down here is the coast of the Yucatan. Cat 5 now paralleling the northern coast of the Yucatan. It's kind of waiting to get picked up by a trough. This time of year, October, always a month that concerns us because when you get into October, the jet stream begins to dip to the south, and that has a tendency to kind of turn storms to the right. 1921 hurricane came at us from the west. That's all because of this, because of the time of the year and a trough that's getting into the Gulf of Mexico. Once it gets picked up by that trough, it's going to accelerate and probably move into an environment off our west coast with more shear and probably some dry air. So it's going to be really tough, and that's good for the storm to stay at Cat 5. And even if it weakens down to, say a Cat 2, it still brings with it the big storm surge and all kinds of issues. And we learned from Helene how problematic a storm surge is. South of the landfall point, the surge will be bigger and a lot higher than it was during Helene. Again, anything north of the landfall point, the winds blow out over the Gulf. Low storm surge. Anything south of the landfall point, winds blow onshore, big storm surge. I know you see the 3. It's right over Tampa Bay. The hurricane doesn't get a message to follow this. It doesn't say, okay, you need to follow the line. So this is not a lock, but it's pretty representative of where the hurricane's going to be. And this, again, this is the cone of where more than likely the center of the storm's going to be. So the storm's here or here or here. It's still a good forecast, but even that small shift north or south really changes the weather. Really, the big problem is at this point, now that it's Monday, it's going to be really tough for something to happen in the atmosphere that gives us a miss. I mean, could this go down to Marco Island? Could this end up in Perry? Probably not. So if it's off by the track, it still impacts our viewers. It impacts you. So that is what's happening now that we're getting closer to the event. Warnings up in red. By the way, the hurricane warning includes Orlando. These are the storm surge numbers, 10 to 15 feet. This is kind of broad brush because we still don't know where the center is. The hurricane center has no choice to put up these numbers. But if the hurricane makes landfall, and again, I'm just saying this, if it's here, these numbers are going to be wrong because the wind's going to go this way. So these numbers are dramatically lower, and these numbers may verify, if not a bit higher, because the winds go this way. So the Hurricane Center is doing the right thing because we don't know yet where the center will make landfall. So this is kind of broad brush, but it gives you an idea of the amount of water that's possible. Here's an explanation. South of the eye, you've got a west and southwest wind. It all depends on where the landfall point is as far as storm surge goes. The models continue to come into better agreement. We'll be watching the evening runs to see if this suite of models goes either north or south. And you can see what the Hurricane Center has done, and they do a pretty good job. Consensus forecasting always works out best, and the track is pretty much a consensus of all the models. We'll have more back in a few minutes. I'm back at 6:30. We'll chit-chat with Mark and Allie. We'll see you in a bit.
Well, as Milton arrives, be prepared to be without power for potentially a long time.
Yeah, there are 3 power companies, of course, that serve Tampa Bay. They're all in agreement that well over 1 million people could lose power. Fox 13's Evan Axelbank is looking into this for us. Live at TECO headquarters in downtown Tampa with the story. Evan, I know they plan for this, they prepare for this, but still, this is a big one.
Yeah, and before we get to all that, the stuff with the power, guys, I want to let you know that the piece of good news here is that there is really nobody around here in downtown Tampa. That means a lot of people seem to be heeding these warnings and evacuating these very dangerous and risky areas. In terms of the power companies say they are amassing thousands of workers to try and get people's power back on once the power does go out, and they believe that this power will go out. There are 2.3 million power customers here in the Tampa Bay area. TECO, Duke, and FP&L serve most of them. They serve everyone from Sarasota to Citrus County, and they are in agreement, those companies are, that a sizable portion of their customers could be without power. The questions, of course, are going to be how many people lose power and for how long. That will depend on what areas are hit, how populated those areas are, and how quickly the crews can access the locations that they need to. Thousands of crews are being staged right now across Sarasota, Pinellas, and Hillsborough counties, and they're being pulled from even further away than normal because so many of their personnel are still helping in Georgia and North Carolina.
We are expecting, as a result of that, widespread extended power outages. That's what we urge customers to prepare for, and we're getting ready for just that. We're pulling in crews from all across the country. We are strategically pre-positioning those crews so that as soon as it's safe to get out and restore power, we can do just that.
This storm will impact every aspect of our system, potentially from generation to transmission to distribution. And so extended outages are a reality. And so that's why we are really asking people to plan ahead if they have medical conditions.
The first order of business for them is going to be hospitals, 911 centers, and sewage facilities. And then it's about bang for their buck. Those lines that are then restored in those busy areas are then branch off into smaller neighborhoods and businesses. So they'll start in the high population areas, get as many people restored as at once as possible, and then go house by house. The governor said there were more than 2 million people who lost power during Hurricane Helene, and that they were able to get most of those customers restored in what he called record time. We're going to see how many lose power this time and how quickly they are restored. But again, guys, very, very empty here in downtown Tampa. So at least that hopefully means people are heeding these warnings.
Sounds like it. Well, if they weren't paying attention 2 weeks ago, we hope they are now. But a little bit of good news there indeed. Evan, thanks for sharing.
Well, we are continuing to track Hurricane Milton. When we come back, Paul is going to be joining us to discuss what to expect as the storm gets closer to Florida. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
family that's coming out. She's coming out from Largo. They're evacuating there, so she's coming to stay with us.
That's right now at 6:30. Family and friends opening their doors to one another as Milton approaches. How the Bay Area is preparing for the storm. Our county-by-county coverage takes us now to Pasco County here at 6:30. As we mentioned earlier, the evacuation orders include zones A, B, and C, and of course, all mobile homes and manufactured homes and those in low-lying areas.
Yeah, county debris haulers, they have also been out all day. They are trying to, as fast as they can, clear all these mounds of debris that are still left from Hurricane Helene. Fox 13's Kylie Jones has the very latest from Newport Richey tonight.
Homeowners and business owners are forced to drop what they're doing with Hurricane Helene cleanup and switch over to Hurricane Milton storm preparations. Emergency officials here in Pasco County are urging people to take this seriously as they say Milton is expected to bring catastrophic storm surge and catastrophic winds. Shelters in Pasco County are now open and all of them are accepting pets. But homes and businesses, especially in the Hudson area, are still trying to get back what they lost from Hurricane Helene. Street after street still has mounds of debris, furniture, drywall, and trash outside. The West Pasco Resource Recovery Center on Hayes Road is open for debris drop-offs as the county also races to get this cleaned up. Mike Malikos owns Inn on the Gulf and says they never flooded until Helene.
We finally flooded. We got a foot and a half inside in the hotel rooms, the restaurant. Right now, we were planning on putting everything back together. All the new coolers were ordered. All our low boy coolers were gone. All the furniture in the downstairs hotel rooms were gone.
The county is urging any private company that's able to help haul out this debris. Emergency officials say there's no cutoff time yet on the Hayes Road debris drop-off site. Pasco County emergency officials are warning people who are evacuating to get out now. They say there are already major traffic backups on US 19 with people evacuating not only from Pasco but other neighboring counties. We have information on evacuation orders and shelters on fox13news.com. In Pasco, Kylie Jones, Fox 13 News.
Kylie, thanks. We want to bring in Paul now. Paul, obviously the story just a couple of weeks ago with Helene was the surge, and I remember vividly the day or two before, we saw these crazy numbers. We thought they can't materialize, right. And they did. Right. So here we are now with higher numbers, and you've done a great job explaining we're not going to see that surge too much north of the Iowa, right? Should all be south.
South, and this is different. Remember, parallel, Helene and Debbie parallel off our coast, honestly, kind of an easy forecast. Because you just kind of know it's not going to come on shore, so you get a good sense. So this one more challenging because the storm comes perpendicular.
Sure.
Makes landfall and also does a more efficient job of pushing the water because it's coming. Imagine I'm the storm and it's coming towards you and it crashes on shore instead of kind of bypassing you. Right. So that in itself, just the physics of the storm going on shore means more water.
Could be a more forceful surge too.
Yeah, and 10 to 15. Mm-hmm. Sure. You don't need to tell me at this point. 10 to 15.
That's above all of us. That's not survivable.
Well, yeah, it's not survivable if you try to ride it out on the beach. I mean, I don't know why anyone would.
Right. That's why you're in an evacuation zone.
But but this is the surge that's life-changing and life-threatening surge.
Paul, a question that I've had from a lot of friends and family today, and I know one that you've gotten a lot too. We know that whether or not you choose to evacuate, if you're not in an evacuation zone, is a personal decision. But a lot of people are seeing the wind and how high the wind is going to be. That even if you are far inland, are you safe if you're not in a flood zone, if you're not in an evacuation zone?
Your house is not going to blow away if it's well built. It is the number one question. Again, in fact, I was back in the office on my phone, and I get the emails. And one came in 2 minutes ago. Mm-hmm. Paul, Plant City, where do I go? And I respond, well, first of all, do you live in a mobile home?
Right.
And if you live in a mobile home, you need to get out and get to a well-built structure. And if you live in a well-built home, you can stay, but still, I'm not going to tell anyone to leave. If someone says, I don't want to spend the night listening to the wind outside and worry about a tree, I want to go to my cousin Joe up in Dade City. Go see cousin Joe in Dade City. The main concern for us is get away from the water. Please do not be anywhere near where the water is going to inundate you, and 90% of all hurricane deaths occur from storm surge, not from wind.
Mm-hmm. Sure. And to your point about the wind, we talk about well-built homes, but you're talking about a solid roof. If you got an awning, that could cause some problems.
And I think everyone. That's why we say it's always a personal situation. Everyone knows their home or house. Everyone kind of knows. Yeah, I got this. Yeah, I got that side of the roof that whenever the wind blows, it shakes a little bit. Everyone's got a thing.
Or if they're older windows.
You got a thing in your house. You kind of know how your home was built. If you say to yourself, you know, this house built in 1943. Yeah. The roof's is gonna go. I'm getting out of here. That's the kind of decision making you got to make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you still have some time to do that.
Some time, but you know, by tomorrow, being on the roads, even now, is not a good time.
Yeah. All right. We'll get back to you soon, Paul. Thanks.
Yeah. Well, whether you are evacuating or you're planning to ride out the storm where you are, there is much more to come as we continue tracking Hurricane Milton tonight. Stay with us.
Welcome back tonight here at 6:45. You know, our inland counties are also going to feel Milton. This is not just going to be a coastal event, unlike when Helene blew by and really just kind of got our coast and those living near the water.
Sure, yeah, there's going to be wind with this one. Polk County activated its Emergency Management Operations Center, and officials warned people there to prepare for rainfall that could cause localized flooding and those strong winds that can damage homes and also power lines and down tree limbs that can block roads. Widespread power outages are anticipated that could last for days. Lakeland Electric's crews are pre-staged ahead of the storm, and there are 100 linemen from in and out of the state ready to provide mutual aid.
We start with all the critical feeders and customers that we have. Those are, the municipal, the utility customers to make sure that we have powers, that we can restore power. Hospitals, fire stations, police stations, nursing homes, those types of facilities.
19 shelters, including pet-friendly shelters and special needs shelters, will be open across the county on Tuesday. In total, they have the capacity to house 38,000 people. Sandbag sites from Lakeland to Kissimmee will also open tomorrow from 8 a.m. until noon. And as we mentioned earlier, in Citrus County, starting at 8 a.m. tomorrow, there is a mandatory evacuation for anyone in mobile homes or manufactured homes. Helene damaged about 300 homes in Citrus County when it rolled through just 11 days ago. Homeowners reported getting 3 feet of water in Homosassa, and piles of debris still line neighborhood streets. Citrus County Sheriff spoke to us this morning on Good Day, and he encouraged residents to remove any debris ahead of Milton and to be prepared for the possibility of more flooding.
We're also concerned for the potential for storm surge. Where I am standing right now at the historic Homosassa Springs State Park, this would have been underwater on the day that Hurricane Helene came through and dropped all that storm surge into our community. There are parts of our community that had over 10 feet of storm surge as a consequence of Helene passing by us on its march towards the Big Bend area and all the way up into the Carolinas and Virginia. So we're not out of the woods yet when it comes to storm surge.
Well, schools are also canceled in for tomorrow and Wednesday for nearly every district in the Tampa Bay area. That includes Hillsborough, Pinellas, Manatee, Sarasota, and Citrus counties. Those districts will make a decision a little bit later this week on whether or not they're going to reopen by the end of the week, Thursday or Friday. While Polk and Hardee counties have already announced they will be closed from now until Thursday. Pasco and Hernando schools will remain closed through Friday, and then local colleges and universities, they've also canceled class. USF right now is closed through Wednesday. That could change, of course, depending upon what happens. And then St. Leo, St. Petersburg, and Polk State College are all closed through Thursday. The new college campus is closed all week, and it will remain closed until a post-storm assessment can be done. So a lot going on, a lot more to tell you still. If you missed any of those closures, the evacuation orders, or if you need to look up the zone or of that of yours or your loved one, we've got links to everything you need on our website, fox13news.com. More to come tonight here at 6. Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado back with the very latest on Hurricane Milton.
Fox 13 Chief Meteorologist Paul Delgado with your Sky Tower radar forecast.
I was back at my desk, just kind of sitting there watching some of the recon data come in. I saw an 897 millibars, sub 900 millibars, which is pretty much unheard of in the Gulf. It's a lot lower than the 5 o'clock advisory. There could be additional intensification. And judging by the amount of lightning around the eye and the fact there's no sign of any shear, there's nothing in the atmosphere right now that's stopping this from intensify. This could hit 185 or maybe 190 before it levels off. It begins to weaken as it moves our way. Remember, for a hurricane to be this strong, everything in the atmosphere has to be just perfect. I mean, you're talking about an incredible heat machine. The driving force of a hurricane is the warm water. It does not like to be disrupted. It doesn't want to be bothered by strong upper level winds. It wants light winds above it. This is a perfect heat machine. And if anything starts going wrong, it begins to weaken. And it will start weakening as it moves our way because it'll run into some shear and dry air. And thankfully, it will begin to weaken. But still, even if it gets down to a Cat 2, it's going to bring this big storm surge with it along our coast. So that's the big headline. And wind issues all the way to the East Coast. Even Orlando has a hurricane warning in effect. Again, what I say before, did I say 897, I think I said? Yeah. This is what it was on the 5 o'clock. Now it's down to 897. Sub 900 in the Gulf. And I think that may be a record. I'm going to have to go back and look. Paralleling the Yucatan, now showing signs getting picked up by the trough. And, you know, why is this track occurring? I mean, why is the hurricane going this way? Don't they go the other way? Well, this is October. And this is what storms do. And that's why when we talk about our hurricane climatology here in the West Coast, we always tell you we're always concerned about October. Think about the hurricane of 1921 that came in from the west. And that's what happens this time of year, is because now we're moving into winter and the jet stream begins to dip. So storms go this way. It's virtually impossible to get a hurricane hit in Texas after October 1st because upper level winds start going this way, and this is kind of following the way it should go, unfortunately. And then it moves over our state, gets all the way to the East Coast, and not only a storm surge problem, but wind issues all the way to the East Coast, where, as I said, Orlando, depending on the strength and speed of the hurricane, could also experience hurricane force winds. Hurricane will make landfall on our West Coast. Hurricane warnings and storm surge warnings are up. Small track changes will make a big difference, especially on who gets the 10 to 15 foot storm surge and who gets a wind blowing the water away from the coast. So that's what we'll be watching tomorrow. And then we can fine tune the 10 to 15 foot storm surge. As I said, hurricane warnings go all the way to Orlando. Every single one of you watching me in our viewing area has a hurricane warning in effect, and all of you watching us along the coast have a storm surge warning. All of these numbers are broad brushed because the Hurricane Center, we don't know where the landfall point is going to be. This is going to have to change because if the hurricane does make landfall somewhere here, these numbers are too high. If the hurricane makes landfall somewhere here, these numbers are too high. Everything south of the landfall point will get the numbers, the high numbers. Everything north, the numbers are too high. So the Hurricane Center has to do this because we don't know exactly where it's going to go. These will be fine-tuned and refined as the hurricane begins to approach our coast. The model agreement, we'll see how the evening runs go, but you can see why the forecast is near us or over us because the consensus, when you look back on hurricane forecast accuracy, consensus is the way to go, and the consensus is pretty much over Tampa Bay. We'll see if that changes tonight at 10 and 11. By the way, we get a streaming show coming up tonight at 8 o'clock. Check it out on the Fox Local app and on fox13.com. Back to you guys.
All right, Paul, thanks. We're going to be with you every step of the way through Hurricane Milton when we come right back here at 6. A few more important reminders as you prepare for the storm. So with Milton approaching here in the next 48 hours, we want to remind you now is the time to make sure you're prepared for the storm. Don't wait and hope this thing's going to turn to the north or south out of our area. It does not look like it's going to happen.
No, we have got to heed the warnings. This is a serious one. You still have the rest of today. You have all day Tuesday to get your home and your property secured before those winds arrive. Now, for some, that'll mean bringing debris into a garage if there's not much and you have one, as well as securing any loose items around your home that could become projectiles. If you are in an evacuation zone, you need to leave. Expect traffic on the roads, but heed any mandatory orders. Local authorities have issued those orders to save lives. And remember, you run from the water, you hide from the wind. We saw the impact Helene's storm surge brought, and this could be higher in some locations. If you are in a well-built home several miles inland and not in a flood zone, you do not need to leave. Just be prepared to ride the storm out and potentially without power for several days. So here are a few more things just to keep in mind as you prepare for this storm. Charge up your devices, any battery backups that you may have so that they are ready to go if or when the power goes out. Print or download your insurance policy details so that you have what you need in order to make a claim. And then be sure to take a video of the contents of the inside of your home for insurance purposes as well. You can do that on the outside. You may also want to designate a meeting place if you or your loved ones happen to be staying in different locations for the duration of the storm. Communication service may be spotty, so make sure that you have a plan to find each other once the storm clears. And again, we're going to be here with you every step of the way. We're going to navigate the storm together. But for right now, we are out of time. We have got a ton of information for you on Fox13News.com and on the Fox 13 News app.
Indeed. Hang in there. Have a great night. We're back here at 10 with much more information. We hope to see you then.